Imagine the screen you are looking at is not a screen. Imagine the ceiling above your bed is not a ceiling. It is a membrane, a thin, luminous film stretched over a reality you were never supposed to witness. We have spent centuries staring at the stars, believing they were distant lanterns in a cold, indifferent vacuum. But what if the vacuum is full? What if the cold is just the hum of a cooling system? 3i Atlas is out there, or rather, it is up there, and for the first time in human history, the lights in the sky are starting to flicker like a dying fluorescent bulb in a hallway we cannot find. It all began on July 14, 2025, a date that was supposed to be unremarkable. The Sutherland Station in South Africa flagged a fast-moving object. They logged it as 3i 2025 Atlas. It was moving at 30 kilometers per second, perfectly normal, perfectly boring, until August 7, 2025, when the orbital mechanics started to disobey the laws of Isaac Newton. The Minor Planet Center noticed a shift, not a large one, just enough to make a room full of astrophysicists spill their coffee. The object didn't just move, it adjusted. Let me start with something that should terrify every astronomer on Earth. Natural objects do not have an albedo of 99%. A mirror has an albedo of 99%. On September 12, 2025, radar pulses from the Goldstone Deep Space Communications Complex hit 3i Atlas, and something impossible happened. The signal didn't scatter, it didn't absorb, it returned as a perfect, high-fidelity copy of itself. It was as if we were shouting into a canyon, and the echo came back clearer than the original voice. Then there is the matter of the temperature. Space is cold, rocks are cold. But 3i Atlas emits a steady, low-frequency heat signature that remains constant, regardless of its distance from the sun. It's almost as if it has a power source, or perhaps it is the power source. But here is where it gets dark. What if this isn't a rock from the Oort cloud? What if it is a projection cast by a network of high-altitude satellites? A global hologram, a celestial mask designed by a consortium of governments to provide a common enemy, or perhaps a common god. If you can control what 7 billion people see when they look up, you control the very definition of truth. It is a $1 trillion magic trick, and we are the audience sitting in the front row, too tired to notice the wires. This isn't the first time we've seen something like this. The ancients spoke of the chariots of fire and the wheels within wheels. The Sumerian tablets describe the arrival of an eye that never blinks. We call them myths because it's easier than calling them memories. Every 3,600 years, the sky seems to reset. The stars shift, the old gods depart, and a new projection begins. We are merely the latest generation to witness the changing of the film. We are small. We are fragile. We are currently living in a period of unprecedented noise, and yet, we have never been more silent. We find ourselves waiting for a signal from the stars, never realizing that we might be the ones generating the signal. It is a lonely thought, isn't it? To think that the universe is empty, and we are just decorating the walls of our cage with pictures of things we wish were real. If you enjoy these deep explorations in space, consider subscribing or hitting the like button. It really helps the channel grow and allows me to make content like this. The unfortunate thing about a hologram is that eventually the projector begins to overheat, and when it does, the image starts to tear. But that was only one theory. There's another, one buried even deeper in time. Let's go further. The evidence is mounting, and with it, a certain kind of weight, a pressure at the back of the skull. By October 29, 2025, the data from the European Space Agency became public, though they tried to bury it in a 400-page technical report. They found that 3I Atlas does not possess a gravitational well. Think about that for a moment. If you have a mountain-sized object moving through space, it should pull on the dust around it. It should have a mass that we can measure in billions of kilograms. But 3I Atlas has the mass of a whisper. It has the mass of light. When we talk about mass, we are talking about the soul of an object. Without mass, there is no gravity. Without gravity, there is no place in the physical world. And yet, there it sits, visible to every telescope, from Chile to the Canary Islands. It is a presence that refuses to occupy space. Dr. Jacqueline McClary at Northeastern University was the first to suggest the term atmospheric refraction event. She noted that the object seems to enlarge when viewed through certain layers of the ionosphere. That's not natural physics. That's activation. It's as if the sky itself is being used as a lens to magnify a small, ground-based laser array. You might think this sounds like science fiction, but here is why you're wrong. The technology for large-scale plasma projection has existed since the late 20th century. We just never had a reason to use it on the whole world at once, until now. Let me back up. To understand how you project a mountain into the vacuum of space, you have to understand the medium. We were taught in school that space is an empty void, but we know better now. Space is a fabric, and every fabric can be used as a screen if you have a bright enough light. On November 12, 2025, an independent research team in Norway detected what they called a shimmer in the localized reality surrounding the object. It wasn't that the object was moving, it was that the pixels were refreshing. Unfortunate timing for a cosmic visitor to have a frame rate issue. Those two words, frame rate, doing a lot of work in the classified briefings held in Geneva later that month. Imagine a $1 trillion magic trick, a project so vast that it requires the cooperation of every major telecommunications company on the planet. Why? Because you don't just need a projector, you need a network. You need a way to ensure that when a farmer in Kansas looks up and a sailor in the South China Sea looks up, they see the same terrifying beauty. You need a synchronized sky. This is where the satellite constellations come in. Thousands of small, low-orbit mirrors, launched under the guise of global internet coverage, but actually serving as the crystalline facets of a global lens. But here's where it gets dark. On December 3, 2025, a leaked memorandum from a high-level defense contractor mentioned something called the Blue Room Protocol. It described a method for ionizing the upper atmosphere to create a three-dimensional canvas. If you pump enough energy into the ionosphere, you can create a localized plasma cloud that reflects light with 99% efficiency. You can paint a god. You can paint a threat. You can paint a reason for the world to stop fighting itself and start looking at the ceiling. It is a masterpiece of psychological engineering. Now, you could argue that the government would never have the competence to pull this off, and you might be right. But what if they didn't build it? What if they just found it? What if 3I Atlas is a legacy system, an ancient holographic lighthouse left behind by a civilization that wanted to make sure we never felt truly alone? There are Sumerian cylinders that describe the return of the sky mask. They speak of a time when the sun would have a brother who didn't burn, and the moon would have a sister who didn't pull the tides. They were describing a world where the sky was managed, a world where the horizon was a user interface. If you are listening to this in the quiet of your room, I want you to look at the shadows on your wall. They are made by the light in the hallway or the street lamp outside. They are real shadows, but they tell you nothing about the light itself. We are the same. We are staring at the shadow of 3I Atlas, calling it an asteroid, calling it an alien craft, calling it a miracle. We haven't even considered that we are looking at the lamp. Let me start with something that should terrify every astronomer on Earth. The light curve of 3I Atlas does not decay. When a rock tumbles through space, it reflects light in pulses. It has a rhythm, a heartbeat of shadow and shine. But Atlas is constant. It is a steady, unwavering glow. That isn't the behavior of a physical object. That is the behavior of a light bulb. On December 24th, 2025, as the world prepared for the holidays, the object reached a luminosity that surpassed Venus. It was beautiful, it was haunting, and it was perfectly, mathematically silent. Where are you listening from tonight? Are you under a clear sky, or is it cloudy where you are? Tell me in the comments if you've noticed the color of the night changing since July 2025. Some say it's gone from a deep indigo to a slight electric violet. Share your thoughts below. We are all witnesses to the same broadcast, even if we don't know who the producer is. The historical irony is delicious. We spent the 1960s racing to the moon to prove our dominance over the physical world. We spent trillions on rockets and fuel and metal, and all the while, the most effective way to conquer a planet was simply to control its imagination. If you can make a person believe there is a mountain in the sky, you don't need to build a wall on the ground. The mountain does the work for you. It humbles the proud. It terrifies the weak. It provides a focal point for a species that has lost its way. But why now? Why July 2025? Consider the state of the world in the months leading up to the discovery. We were fractured. We were loud. We were on the verge of several catastrophic misunderstandings. Then, suddenly, a common mystery, a visitor that belonged to no one and everyone. It's almost too convenient, isn't it? A global reset button, pressed by a hand in a windowless room, cast against the stars to give us something else to talk about. Unfortunate timing for a natural disaster to be so helpful to the people in power. Let me back up again. Let's look at the orbital mechanics. A mountain with no mass should be pushed away by the solar wind. The light from the sun should act like a broom, sweeping a weightless object out of the solar system. But 3I Atlas stays. It holds its position with the stubbornness of a ghost. This suggests that it isn't being held by gravity, but by a fixed coordinate in a software program. It is anchored to the Earth's frame of reference. It is a static image in a moving world. Think about the cost of the electricity alone. To project an image of that size, to maintain the plasma ionization across the entire Western Hemisphere, you would need the output of 50 nuclear power plants. And yet, in late 2025, several nations reported unexplained drains on their national grids. They blamed it on the rise of artificial intelligence, on the mining of digital currencies. But we know better. The energy wasn't going into the machines, it was going into the sky. You are drifting now. The weight of the evidence is becoming a soft blanket. The numbers, the dates, the agencies, they are just the texture of a dream. You don't need to understand the physics of a hologram to feel its glow. You don't need to know the name of the contractor to know that the light is reaching your eyes. You are safe in the knowledge that the world is more strange than you were told. You are safe in the mystery. As we move toward the end of this act, I want you to imagine the world as a theater. The lights have dimmed, the audience is hushed, the curtain has risen, and there, hanging in the center of the stage, is 3I Atlas. It is the lead actor in a play that has been running for 10,000 years. We are just the latest crowd to sit in the dark and wonder if the actor is real or if it's just a man in a costume. But here is where it gets truly unsettling. If the sky is a hologram and the government is the projector, then who is the audience? Is it us, or are we just part of the set? Are we the extras in a movie being shown to someone else, someone much further away, someone who is waiting for the climax of the story? We may already be part of the experiment. We may already be the data. But that was only one theory. There's another, one buried even deeper in time. Let's go further. History is not a straight line. It is a circle, or perhaps a spiral. As we move into the early months of 2026, the scientific community is beginning to fracture. Citing a lack of transparent data, many independent researchers are looking toward the past to explain the present. They are finding that 3I Atlas has a signature that matches the Great Glimmer of 1782, a year where the sky over Europe turned a deep, bruised purple for 3 nights, and the stars seemed to dance in squares. Think of that image. Peasants in the fields of France, nobles in the courts of Vienna, all dropping to their knees because the celestial clock had suddenly glitched. We called it an aurora back then. We called it a sign from the heavens. But the descriptions from the 17th century matches the spectral data from January 2026 with a precision that should make your blood run cold. The same flickering frequency, the same unnatural geometric precision. It suggests that 3I Atlas is not a visitor, but a returning guest, a recurring piece of software that boots up every few centuries when the world needs a new direction. Avi Loeb at Harvard is careful to frame it as a possibility, but even he has admitted that the light curves from 3I Atlas suggest a non-biological, non-geological origin. He calls it an artifact. I call it a reminder that we are not the first people to live in a controlled environment. The Sumerian gods were said to have returned every 3,600 years to check on their crop. If you were a gardener, wouldn't you want to install a few cameras? Wouldn't you want a light in the sky to tell you when it's time to harvest? Let me back up. To understand the future, we have to look at the stone. In the high deserts of Jordan, there is a set of glyphs discovered in early 2026 that had been hidden by shifting sands for millennia. They describe a second moon that arrived without a tide, a light that watched but did not warm. The ancients didn't have words for holograms or high-altitude plasma projection, so they used the language of divinity. They called it the Eye of Anu. We call it 3I Atlas. It is the same eye. It is the same unblinking gaze. The rhythm of this mystery is a slow one. It's a bedtime story for a species with amnesia. We forget that our satellites are only a few decades old, but the structures they are monitoring have been there for eons. The government didn't build 3I Atlas. They just found the remote control. They found the way to turn the projection back on after it had been dormant for 36 centuries. Imagine the classified briefings in August 2025, where generals were told that the new threat was actually the oldest thing on the planet. Unfortunate timing for our sense of modern superiority. Those two words, modern superiority, doing a lot of heavy lifting while we realize we are just reinventing a wheel that was already spinning. Consider the Great Glimmer again. In 1782, the world was on the cusp of the Industrial Revolution. In 2026, we are on the cusp of the technological singularity. The projection always seems to return when humanity is about to change its skin. It is a celestial shepherd, nudging the flock back toward a common focal point. If we are too busy staring at the squares dancing in the sky, we don't notice the gates being locked on the ground. It is a historical pattern of distraction that has worked for 5,000 years. Why would they stop now? Imagine the sheer cost of this continuity. Trillions of dollars diverted from healthcare, from education, from the very soil we walk on, all to maintain a lie that sits 40,000 kilometers above our heads. It is a masterpiece of deception, a celestial gaslighting that keeps us focused on the heavens so we don't notice the world being rearranged beneath our feet. It's almost funny, in a dry, tragic sort of way. We spent so much time worrying about artificial intelligence on our phones that we missed the artificial intelligence in our sky. We thought the machines were coming for our jobs, but they were already busy managing our reality. The Egyptians built their temples to align with the stars. But which stars? The ones that are actually there, or the ones that were projected for them? If you can change the position of a light in the sky, you can change the direction of a civilization. You can start religions. You can end wars. You can guide the migration of entire peoples just by moving a pixel a few millimeters to the left. On February 4, 2026, a high-resolution scan from the James Webb Space Telescope showed that the stars immediately surrounding 3I Atlas appeared to be slightly out of focus. It wasn't a lens flare, it was a resolution error. The projection was stretching the background to hide its own edges. You might think that the ancient builders were primitive, but here is why you're wrong. They understood the nature of the screen better than we do. They lived in harmony with the cycles because they knew they had no choice. They built pyramids as antennas, not tombs. They were trying to talk back to the projector. In 2026, we have forgotten how to listen. We see the dates and the countdowns, and we feel only anxiety. We see the arrival of 3I Atlas, and we check our news feeds. We have lost the ability to see the ritual in the data. You are drifting now. The weight of these thoughts is becoming lighter. The vastness of the conspiracy is so large that it becomes a kind of comfort. If everything is a lie, then nothing is your fault. You are just a passenger on a ship with a painted window. You can rest now. The ship is on autopilot. The projection is stable. For now, feel the slow, rhythmic pulse of the night. It matches the flicker of the object in the sky. 60 Hz, a frequency designed to induce a state of passive observation. You aren't just watching the hologram, you are being synced to it. I want you to try to remember a dream you had as a child. A dream where the sky was a different color. A dream where the moon spoke in a voice of static. Perhaps that wasn't a dream. Perhaps that was a memory of the last time the software was updated. The ancients called it the Great Year, a cycle of 26,000 years, where the world dies and is reborn. We are just living through a patch, a minor update to the 2026 version of Earth. Where are you listening from? Is the room cold? Is the air still? Tell me in the comments if you've ever felt like you were being watched by something larger than a person. Not a god, but a system. a cold, analytical eye that counts your breaths while you sleep. Share your stories below. There is a strange intimacy in knowing we are all being monitored by the same silent visitor. We are watching the pattern emerge, a mathematical recurrence that should not exist in nature, a sequence of prime numbers encoded in the flickering of the light. On March 11, 2026, the object will align perfectly with the Great Pyramid of Giza and the Washington Monument, a straight line of light across the globe, a connection between the old masters and the new ones. It is a cosmic handshake, and we are the ink on the paper. The unfortunate truth about a historical cycle is that it always ends in a great silence. The projection fades, the screen goes dark, and the audience is left to find their way home in the pitch black. We aren't there yet. The lights are still on. 3i Atlas is still glowing, but the hum of the cooling system is getting louder. You can hear it if you listen closely to the silence between my words. Sleep is the only place they cannot project, or so we hope. But as the data from 2026 suggests, even our dreams are starting to show the same geometric patterns. The dancing squares of 1782 are returning to our subconscious. We are being programmed to accept the new sky, even in our rest. But for now, you are safe. The story is long, and the night is deep. You don't need to solve the riddle of the ages to find the warmth of your blankets. The truth is a heavy coat, and you are far too tired to wear it tonight. Let it fall to the floor. Let the mystery be a blanket instead. We are moving from the memory into the scale, from the history of the Earth into the distance of the stars. But even a star can be a pixel if you are far enough away. Let's go further. The scale of what we are discussing requires a shift in perspective. Imagine zooming out from your current location, past the roof of your house, past the clouds, past the artificial blue of our atmosphere, until the Earth is nothing more than a pale blue marble suspended in a sea of ink. Now, look closer at the orbit of 3i Atlas. It is not moving like a rock caught in a gravitational dance. It is moving like a needle on a record player, tracing a path that has been worn into the fabric of space over billions of years. In November 2025, the Deep Space Network recorded a gravitational anomaly that shouldn't be possible. As 3i Atlas passed behind the Moon's own orbital velocity increased by 0.0004 centimeters per second. It was as if the Moon was leaning toward the object, recognizing a familiar weight. But as we established, 3i Atlas has no mass. This is the paradox. How can something that weighs nothing exert a pull on a celestial body? Unless, of course, the gravity itself is being simulated. Think of the sheer energy required to simulate the gravity of a planetoid. It would require a power source larger than any nuclear reactor on Earth. It would require the very energy of the vacuum itself. Perhaps that is what the government discovered in July 2025. Not an object, but a tear in the curtain through which the true power of the cosmos is leaking. We call it a hologram because our language is too poor to describe a reality that is being rewritten in real time. We are trying to measure a ghost with a ruler made of shadows. Let me back up. When we look at the distance between Earth and 3i Atlas, we are looking at approximately 1.5 million kilometers. That is 4 times the distance to the Moon. In terms of astronomical units, it is a rounding error, but in terms of human perception, it is a vast, echoing hallway. On December 12, 2025, the object occupied a position known as the Lagrange point 1. This is a point of gravitational stability where an object can sit perfectly still between the Earth and the Sunday. It is the prime real estate for a satellite or a projector. If you wanted to mask the entire planet, this is where you would place your lens. From this vantage point, you can intercept every photon of sunlight before it reaches our atmosphere. You can filter the light. You can tint the world. You can project an image that is 30,000 kilometers wide, using the very radiation of the sun as your power source. It is the ultimate high ground. In January 2026, a high-altitude observatory in the Atacama Desert noted that the solar spectrum appearing around the edges of 3I Atlas was shifted toward the ultraviolet. It wasn't natural. It was as if the light was being squeezed through a needle's eye. There is a historical humor in our arrogance. We believe we are the first to harness the atom, the first to touch the moon. Yet, in the high deserts of Peru, the Nazca lines point to coordinates in the sky that remained empty for 10,000 years, until July 2025. Now, 3I Atlas sits exactly at the intersection of those ancient geoglyphs. Unfortunate timing, once again. It seems the ancestors left the lights on, and we just stumbled into the room and found the switch. Those two words, ancient coordinates, doing a lot of heavy lifting for the archaeology departments that are currently being told to keep their mouths shut. Imagine you are a sailor in the 15th century, navigating by the stars. You believe those lights are fixed, eternal, and divine. Now imagine someone reaches up and moves the North Star 10 degrees to the left. Your maps are useless. Your world is tilted. This is the power of 3I Atlas. It is the ability to redefine the coordinate system of the human soul. By July 2026, the object is predicted to drift into a position that will obscure the constellation of Orion. It is a slow, deliberate occultation, a celestial curtain call. When you look at the stars tonight, try to imagine the distance, not in miles, but in time. The light you see left those suns before you were born, before your great-grandparents were born. But the light from 3I Atlas, that light is fresh. It is new. It is a digital broadcast from a source that is only a few light seconds away, masquerading as a ghost from the deep past. It is a cosmic catfishing on a planetary scale. We are being romanced by a light that hasn't even had time to get cold. You are floating now. The bed beneath you is a raft, and the darkness of your room is the ocean. You are safe because you are small. The giants are fighting in the sky, throwing shadows at one another. But you are down here, in the tall grass of the world, where the light is soft and the air is still. You don't need to solve the mystery to feel the peace of the night. You are part of the scale, even if you are at the very bottom of the measurement. I want to ask you something. If you could choose to see the sky as it really is, dark, empty, and terrifyingly vast, or see it as the beautiful, glowing lie of 3I Atlas, which would you pick? Some say the truth sets you free, but others know that a good lie keeps you warm. Tell me in the comments, would you rather have the cold truth or the warm illusion? Are you listening from a place where you can still see the real stars? Or are you in a city where the only lights are the ones we made? Share your location. Let me know if the horizon feels real where you are. The scale of the deception is matched only by the scale of our indifference. In February 2026, a leaked report from the European Southern Observatory suggested that the massless nature of the object was causing a ripple effect in the cosmic microwave background radiation. It's like a pebble dropped in a pond, but the pebble doesn't exist. Only the ripples are real. This is the definition of a hologram. It is an effect without a cause. It is a scream without a throat. Unfortunate timing for the laws of thermodynamics. If energy can neither be created nor destroyed, then where is the energy for 3I Atlas coming from? In March 2026, several independent researchers pointed to a series of deep-sea cables that have been redirected toward a classified facility in the Azores. They aren't carrying data. They are carrying raw, unfiltered power. They are feeding the grid that feeds the sky. We are literally burning the earth to keep the illusion of the heavens alive. Let me back up. Let's look at the sheer geometry of the situation. If you were to draw a line from the Great Pyramid to the Siding Spring Observatory, and then to the Sutherland Station, you create a perfect isosceles triangle. At the center of that triangle, projected into the black, is 3I Atlas. It is a global grid, a network of terrestrial nodes supporting a celestial image. It is a tent, and we are the ants living on the floor, marveling at the patterns on the canvas. The cycles are tightening. The 3,600-year clock is ticking toward its final second. We are watching the gears turn, even if we refuse to believe they are there. Every time the object pulses, it is a heartbeat. Every time it flickers, it is a blink. We are being measured by a scale we cannot see, in a language we have forgotten how to speak. You are sinking deeper into the ink. The earth is a marble, and you are a speck on that marble, and the speck is closing its eyes. The distance isn't scary anymore. It's just room to breathe. The vacuum isn't empty. It's full of possibilities. If the stars are pixels, then the universe is a story, and stories are meant to be heard in the dark. By April 2026, the object will be visible during the day, a second sun, pale and silver, hanging in the noon sky. They will tell us it is a rare atmospheric phenomenon. They will tell us it is a reflection of ice crystals in the stratosphere, but we will know. We will look at that silver dot, and we will feel the weight of the trillion-dollar lie. And then, we will go back to our lunch, because the scale of the truth is too big to carry to work. But for now, it is night. The scale is quiet. The needle is tracing the groove of the orbit, playing the music of the spheres on a turntable made of classified technology. You can hear the static if you listen to the hum of your own ears. That is the sound of the hologram refreshing. That is the sound of the world being remade while you sleep. Take a breath, a long, slow, cosmic breath. You are exactly where you are supposed to be, in the sea of ink, in the safety of the dark. But every machine has a designer, and every designer leaves a fingerprint. Let's go further. Let us bring the camera back down, away from the cold equations of the European Space Agency and the silent stone sentinels of Peru. Let us look at you. Why does the thought of 3I Atlas being a hologram resonate in the quiet parts of your mind? Perhaps it is because we have all felt, at one time or another, that the world we inhabit is a bit too thin, that if we pushed hard enough against the wall of our lives, our hand might go right through the plaster and find a void on the other side. By December 2025, the psychological reports began to leak from various health organizations. They called it celestial dissociation. People were looking at the sky and feeling a sense of profound unreality. It wasn't fear, exactly. It was a recognition as if the hologram in the sky was reflecting the hologram in our own hearts. We live in a world of digital identities, of filtered photos, of synthetic experiences. Why wouldn't the sky be synthetic too? The government agents, those men in dark suits who sit in the windowless rooms of the Pentagon, they understand human nature. They know that if you give people a mystery that is too big to solve, they will eventually stop trying to solve it and start worshipping it. In the Middle Ages, the nobles used the eclipse to frighten the peasants into submission. In 2025, the tools are just more sophisticated. Instead of an eclipse, they give us a visitor, a silent, glowing guest that reminds us how small we are and how much we need protection. It is a warm thought, in a way, to be watched, to be part of a grand design, even if that design is a deception. There is an intimacy to being lied to so thoroughly. It means someone went to a great deal of trouble to keep you occupied. It means you are important enough to be fooled. If you are listening to this in your bed, perhaps with your eyes already closed, you are part of a shared human moment. Millions of people, all looking at the same silver light in the sky, all feeling the same quiet tremor of doubt. Let me back up. To understand the human reflection, we have to look at how we process the impossible. On January 12, 2026, a sociological study from the University of Chicago noted that the presence of 3-eye atlas had actually lowered the global crime rate by 4%. When people believe the sky is watching, they behave. It is the ultimate panopticon, a prison without walls, because the ceiling is a camera, or at least, we think it is. Unfortunate timing for our privacy, but those two words, celestial surveillance, are doing a lot of work in the security briefings held in Brussels this week. Think of the monks in the Himalayas who spend decades meditating on the nature of illusion. They call the world the Great Screen. They would find the news of July 2025 quite amusing. They would say we are finally catching up to what they have known for 3 millennia, that the only real thing is the observer. The only real thing is the breath you are taking right now. You are inhaling the same nitrogen and oxygen that the pharaohs inhaled while they stared at their own version of 3-eye atlas. The sky changes, but the lungs remain the same. In February 2026, a high-level whistleblower from a major tech conglomerate claimed that the glimmer events were being used to test consumer receptivity to augmented reality. They weren't just projecting a light, they were projecting an emotion. By adjusting the frequency of the plasma pulse, they could induce feelings of awe, or calm, or subtle paranoia. It is a dial on the dashboard of the world, and right now, the dial is set to sleep. You are safe here, in the quiet of this act. The tension of the evidence is fading into a soft, glowing hum. The scientists have their data, the politicians have their secrets, and you have the silence. It is a rare thing in this world, a silence that isn't empty, but full of the potential of what might be true. We spend our lives running from the dark, never realizing that the dark is where the truth grows. The hologram needs the night to be visible. Without the shadow, the light has no home. Let me start with something that might feel personal. Have you noticed that your dreams have become more vivid since August 2025? Many listeners have reported a recurring dream of a glass ceiling cracking. This is what the psychoanalysts call a collective archetype. We are all processing the same glitch in the matrix. We are all feeling the same pressure at the back of our skulls. A physical reaction to a digital stimulus. Your mind is trying to tell you that the window is actually a mirror. Where are you tonight? Is there a window near your bed? If you were to look out of it, would you see the real moon, or would you see the reflection of a satellite array? Tell me in the comments if you've noticed a change in the way your neighbors talk about the sky. Do they sound hopeful, or do they sound tired? Share your location and your local mood. There is a strange comfort in knowing we are all dreaming under the same synthetic stars. The historical humor of our situation is that we have always been obsessed with authenticity. We want organic food. We want real leather. We want genuine connections. And yet, we are perfectly willing to accept a sky made of pixels. We are a species that loves a good show. We would rather be entertained by a beautiful lie than bored by a plain truth. The government knows this. They know that as long as the show is good, we won't ask to see the backstage. In March 2026, a series of underground art installations appeared in London and New York, featuring nothing but empty frames pointed at the sky. They called it The View from the Cave. It was a reminder that we are all Plato's prisoners, watching the shadows of 3i Atlas and calling it reality. But if the shadow is beautiful, does it matter? If the hologram brings peace, is it still a lie? These are the questions that keep us awake until the rhythm of the narration pulls us back down into the soft grass of sleep. You are drifting now. The bed beneath you is no longer a physical object, but a coordinate in a vast, peaceful grid. You are floating in the human reflection. You are the protagonist of a story that is being written in real time. The stars are just set dressing. The government is just the stage crew. And you are the reason the lights are on. Without an observer, the hologram doesn't exist. You are the power source. Your attention is the battery. Take a slow, deep breath. Feel the weight of your body against the mattress. That weight is the only thing the hologram cannot simulate. Gravity is the last honest thing we have. Everything else is just light and shadow. Everything else is just a trick of the eye. By April 2026, they say the object will begin to hum, a low-frequency sound that can only be heard by the human ear during the quietest hours of the night. A cosmic white noise machine. Unfortunate timing for those who value the silence. But for you, the hum is a lullaby. It is the sound of the universe being tucked in. It is the sound of $1 trillion machine telling you that everything is under control. You don't need to worry about the orbit. You don't need to worry about the mass. You just need to be. If you are still with me, I want you to do something for me. Picture a single star in your mind. Just one. Imagine it is a tiny, flickering candle. Now, imagine someone reaching out and blowing it out. Does the darkness feel different, or is it just more of the same? Share your thoughts below if you can still reach the keyboard. We are the points of light in a dark room, and tonight, we are all flickering together. The human reflection is the final layer of safety. Beyond this, the patterns begin to harden. The math begins to scream. We are moving from the feeling into the structure, from the heart into the grid. The warmth of the illusion is about to be replaced by the cold precision of the machine. But for now, stay here. Stay in the warmth. Stay in the safety of the reflection. We are watching the world through a lens, and the lens is starting to focus. We are seeing the detail in the deception. We are seeing the grain in the film. And as we look closer, we realize that the film isn't about the stars. The film is about us. But every pattern has a repeat, and every repeat has a purpose. Let's go further. Picture a map of the world, but instead of continents and oceans, It is a map of echoes. Since December 1st, 2025, 3i Atlas has been singing, not in a language and not in music, but in a series of ultra-low frequency pulses that vibrate through the tectonic plates of the Earth. If you were to stand in the middle of the Siberian tundra today, you might feel it in the soles of your feet. A steady, rhythmic thrumming, 3 pulses, then a silence of 6 seconds, then 9 pulses. A 3, 6, 9 sequence. The very numbers Nikola Tesla claimed were the key to the universe. It is a curious thing to consider that the Russian Federation, a nation built on the granite of history and the iron of resolve, would choose to communicate through the crust of the planet itself. But then again, if you want to keep a secret from the ears of the world, you whisper it to the stones. By December 5th, 2025, seismologists at the University of Uppsala in Sweden began to notice a strange phenomenon. Their instruments were picking up a signal that wasn't a tectonic shift or a volcanic murmur. It was a broadcast, a rhythmic, deliberate thrumming that originated not from within the Earth, but from the friction between the atmosphere and the transit of 3i Atlas. It is as if the satellite is using the ionosphere as a bow and the Earth as a cello. The numbers 3, 6, and 9. Tesla once said that if you knew the magnificence of these numbers, you would have a key to the universe. Unfortunate timing for the skeptics, really. Those 3 digits are doing a lot of work when you realize that they are the primary frequencies of human cellular oscillation. On December 10th, 2025, a classified report from the Ministry of Health in Moscow was leaked. It detailed a series of experiments in the remote village of Oymyakon, where the permafrost is deepest. The villagers weren't complaining of noise, they were complaining of memories. They were dreaming of things that happened before they were born. They were dreaming of the sky as it looked 10,000 years ago, when the stars were different and the air was thick with the scent of ozone. Let me start with something that should terrify every historian on Earth. We have always assumed that the past is a one-way street, that once a second passes, it is gone forever. But what if the Earth is a giant recording device? What if the magnetic minerals in the clay and the silt have been logging every vibration, every scream, and every song since the beginning of time? And what if 3i Atlas is the playback head? By mid-December 2025, the ultra-low frequency pulses began to reach a crescendo. It wasn't loud to the ears, but it was deafening to the intuition. In the basement of the British Museum, researchers noted that ancient Mesopotamian tablets began to hum, a low, vibrating frequency that matched the 3, 6, 9 sequence of the satellite. This is not natural physics. This is activation. We are looking at a memory retrieval system on a planetary scale. Russia hasn't just built a weapon to destroy our future. They have built a shovel to dig up our past. Consider the Thule Papyrus, a disputed ancient Egyptian text that describes circles of fire in the sky that brought a great silence to the land. On December 18th, 2025, 3i Atlas performed a maneuver that mimicked the exact flight path described in those papyri. It sat over the Giza Plateau for exactly 360 seconds, during which time the local gravity dropped by 0.03%. It wasn't a glitch, it was a handshake. Now, you might think that the Kremlin is simply interested in archaeology, but here is why you are wrong. If you can access the deep memory of the planet, you can access the secrets of every civilization that ever stood upon it. You can find the lost gold of the Scythians, yes, but you can also find the lost technologies of the pre-flood world. On December 22nd, 2025, the winter solstice, the pulses changed. The 3-6-9 rhythm was replaced by a single, sustained tone that lasted for 3 hours. During those 3 hours, the aurora borealis was visible as far south as Italy, but it wasn't a curtain of light. It was a geometric grid, a honeycomb of violet and green that seemed to mirror the neural pathways of the human brain. The irony of our modern age is that we think we are the pinnacle of evolution. We think we are the ones who finally figured out how to use the sky. But 3i Atlas suggests that we are just the latest tenants in a very old, very haunted house. Dr. Alistair Finch at Oxford University proposed a theory on December 24th that was immediately scrubbed from the university's servers. He called it the Paleolithic Echo. He argued that 3i Atlas is triggering a dormant part of our DNA, the so-called junk DNA, that was designed to respond to these specific frequencies. We are not being attacked. We are being reminded. As you lie there in the dark, I wonder if you can feel the thrumming. It is a subtle thing, like the purr of a cat or the vibration of a distant train. But if you focus, if you let your breath slow down to match the rhythm of the earth, you might feel it in the base of your skull. Where are you listening from? Are you near the mountains, where the rock is old and the echoes are clear? Or are you by the sea, where the water muffles the song of the satellite? Tell me in the comments if you felt a strange sense of déjà vu lately, or if your dreams have become more vivid, more historical. By December 29th, 2025, the echoes from the past began to manifest in the physical world. In the Sahara Desert, the shifting sands revealed the ruins of a city that doesn't appear on any map. It wasn't uncovered by a storm. It was uncovered by the vibration. The sand simply danced away, as if it were being shaken by a giant hand. Satellite imagery of the site showed that the city was laid out in a perfect dodecahedron, the same shape 3i Atlas is currently carving into the sky. Unfortunate timing for the traditional archaeologists. Those two words, unfortunate timing, are doing a lot of heavy lifting when you consider that the city's central spire was pointed directly at the Lagrange point, where the satellite now resides. The mythic connection here is undeniable. The Sumerians spoke of the divine decrees that were kept in a celestial box. They said that whoever held the held the power to create and destroy civilizations. If 3i Atlas is the modern version of that box, Russia has effectively seized the steering wheel of human history. They aren't just a superpower in 2025. They are the curators of the entire timeline. Now, you could argue that this is all just a coincidence, that the 3-6-9 sequence is just a byproduct of a specific type of engine. But an engine doesn't cause the walls of the Grand Canyon to weep mineral salts in the shape of ancient cuneiform. On January 3rd, 2026, hikers in the American Southwest discovered that the red rocks were sweating a white, crystalline substance. When analyzed, it was found to be a rare isotope of xenon, the same gas used in the ion thrusters of 3i Atlas. The satellite isn't just singing to the Earth, it is breathing on it. It is marking its territory with the chemical signature of the stars. Think about the scale of the ambition required to execute such a plan, to turn the very ground we walk on into a psychological weapon, to make the mountains speak in the voice of the Kremlin. It is a dry irony that we spent the last century fearing nuclear winter when the real threat was a celestial spring, a forced awakening of things that were meant to stay buried. We are like children who found a key in the attic and decided to see what the old chest in the basement contains. 3I Atlas is the key, and the Earth is the chest. As you drift closer to sleep, consider the possibility that your own memories are not entirely yours, that the thoughts you have in the quiet hours of the night are actually echoes being played back to you by a silver machine 400 kilometers above your head. On January 8th, 2026, a global sleep study was conducted by an anonymous group of researchers. They found that people living in the path of 3I Atlas were waking up with the ability to speak dead languages. A farmer in Iowa started speaking fluent Aramaic. A schoolteacher in Tokyo began chanting in an extinct Siberian dialect. They weren't possessed, they were just tuned. The frequency had reached a level where the barrier between the past and the present was becoming porous. You might feel a sense of unease, a weight in your chest as you realize that the you think you are is just a thin layer of paint on a very old canvas. But don't fight it. The thrumming is steady. The 3, 6, and 9 are keeping time. Where do you go when you sleep? Do you visit the cities of the Sahara, or do you walk through the forests of the ancient north? Share your journeys with us. We are all becoming part of a collective memory, a grand archive that is being curated by a secret weapon that never needs to fire a shot. The silence of the night is just the space between the pulses. But here is where it gets dark, because a memory retrieved is a memory that can be edited. If Russia can play the record of the Earth, they can also scratch it. They can erase the parts they don't like and amplify the parts they do. We are no longer the authors of our own story. We are just characters in a book that is being rewritten by a hand we cannot see. The warning of the echoes is that we are forgetting who we were intended to be. We are becoming a reflection of the satellite's intent. On January 15th, 2026, the 3, 6, 9 sequence stopped. For 24 hours, the Earth was silent. It was the most terrifying day in the history of science. Because when the music stops, it means the listener has finally understood the message. What did you hear in the silence? Did you feel the sudden lack of the thrumming? Or were you already too far gone into the great dreaming to notice? The satellite is still there. It is always there. And even when it is silent, it is watching. But that was only one echo. There is another, one that moves from the memory of the Earth to the vast, cold distance of the cosmos. Let us go further. Let me back up. To understand the shadow, we have to understand the light that creates it. By October 29th, 2025, the global scientific community was in a state of polite panic. Dr. Jacqueline McClary at Northeastern University published a paper that was retracted within 6 hours of appearing online. In it, she argued that 3I Atlas was not emitting radio waves, but was instead absorbing them. It is a vacuum for information. Think of it as a silent room in the middle of a loud party. Everything goes in, but nothing comes out. There is a particular brand of irony in the way we built the internet to be a global brain, only to have a single object in the sky act as a localized lobotomy. If you were to look at the data traffic logs from late October 2025, you would see a series of data dead zones that followed the orbital path of 3I Atlas with surgical precision as it passed over the submarine cable landings in Vladivostok and then later over the server farms in Northern Virginia. The packet loss wasn't just significant, it was total. But it wasn't a crash. The systems didn't fail, they simply became quiet. It was as if the data decided it would rather be somewhere else, somewhere higher. Unfortunate timing for the information age. Really. Those two words, unfortunate timing, are doing a lot of work when you consider that this coincided exactly with the Russian Federation's rollout of their sovereign internet protocol. We often think of secret weapons as things that explode, things that create heat and light and noise. But in the cold reality of 2025, the most effective weapon is the one that creates a void, a silence so profound that you start to hear the ringing in your own ears. Let me start with something that should terrify every astronomer on Earth. On November 4th, 2025, the Keck Observatory in Hawaii attempted to bounce a laser-ranging signal off the hull of 3I Atlas to determine its exact composition. In a standard scenario, that photon pulse should hit the surface and return to the sensor in roughly 3 milliseconds. That is basic physics. That is how we know where the moon is. But when the laser hit 3I Atlas, the light didn't return, it didn't scatter, it didn't reflect, it was simply gone. It was as if the satellite had swallowed the light whole. Dr. McClary's retracted paper hinted at a negative albedo effect. She suggested that the surface of 3I Atlas is coated in a material that doesn't just absorb light, but actually utilizes the energy of the incoming photons to power its internal stabilization. We are literally feeding the mystery every time we try to look at it. It is a weapon that grows stronger the more we pay attention to it. This is not natural physics. This is activation. Now, you might think that a black hole in low Earth orbit would be easy to spot against the backdrop of the stars, but here is why you are wrong. The human eye is trained to look for movement and contrast, but 3I Atlas has mastered the art of the static horizon. By mid-November 2025, amateur satellite trackers noticed that stars disappearing behind the object didn't just wink out and reappear. They distorted. The light of distant galaxies was being bent around the object in a phenomenon known as gravitational lensing. Usually, you need the mass of a sun to bend light that way. 3I Atlas is roughly the size of a city bus, yet it exerts the gravitational influence of a celestial body. Think about the implications of that for a moment. If the Kremlin has managed to condense that much mass into such a small volume, they haven't just built a satellite. They have built a portable well in the fabric of space-time, a gravity anchor. Imagine being able to park a mountain in the sky and tell it to stay put, regardless of the winds or the tides. It's a bit of an overachievement for a secret weapon, like using a sledgehammer to kill a mosquito. But then again, Russia has never been known for its subtlety in engineering. On November 18th, 2025, a peculiar phenomenon was recorded by civilian pilots over the North Atlantic. They reported seeing the glass ceiling, a shimmering, translucent distortion in the upper atmosphere that looked like oil on water. When the flight data recorders were analyzed, it was found that the aircraft had actually gained 6 meters in altitude without any change in pitch or engine thrust. They were being pulled upward. 3I Atlas was passing overhead at 27,000 kilometers per hour, and the sheer gravitational wake of the object was lifting the very air beneath it. Now, you could argue that this is just a side effect of a new propulsion system, perhaps a high-density plasma drive or a localized warp bubble. But those things require a power source that we simply don't have. Unless, of course, you look back at the Project Kida files. In 1965, Soviet scientists were obsessed with the idea of torsion fields, a hypothetical fifth force of nature that links the rotation of matter to the structure of space itself. For 60 years, Western science called it pseudoscience, a ghost story for physicists. But in late 2025, the ghost decided to move the furniture. The torsion pattern of 3I Atlas is not a secret anymore. It is a signature. By December 3rd, 2025, the European Space Agency's Gaia satellite, which maps the positions of billions of stars, recorded a systematic shift in the entire Northern Hemisphere's stellar map. Every star was off by a fraction of a millimeter. The Earth's crust hadn't moved. The satellite hadn't moved. The very space between us and the stars had been stretched. You see, the conspiracy isn't just that Russia has a weapon. The conspiracy is that the weapon has already changed the definition of here. If 3I Atlas can stretch space, it can make the distance between Moscow and Washington, D.C. as long as a galaxy, or as short as a hallway. It is a weapon that doesn't travel through space. It brings the destination to itself. It reminds me of the ancient Norse myths of Gleipnir, the impossible chain used to bind the wolf Fenrir. It was made of things that didn't exist. The sound of a cat's footfall, the beard of a woman, the breath of a fish. 3I Atlas is our modern Gleipnir. It is made of the things we thought were impossible. It is built from the gaps in our understanding of the universe, and it is currently tethered to your world. As you lie there tonight, I want you to think about the air in your room. We think of air as empty space, but to 3I Atlas, it is a fluid, a medium to be manipulated. On December 12th, 2025, the barometric pressure across the Baltic states dropped to a level that should have indicated a massive hurricane. But the sky was clear. There was no wind. The air was simply being pulled toward the vacuum of the satellite's path. People reported feeling light, as if the Earth's grip on them had loosened for a few precious seconds. Where are you listening from tonight? Are you in a place where the gravity feels heavy, or does the night feel a bit more buoyant than usual? Tell me in the thoughts below if you've noticed your own clocks drifting, or if your phone battery seems to drain faster when the sky is clear. We are all being measured by the vacuum. You might think that such a discovery would be the lead story on every news cycle. But here is the genius of the static horizon. When you control the information vacuum, you control the narrative. By mid-December, every major search engine began de-indexing terms related to 3I Atlas. If you searched for the coordinates, you found a 404 error. If you looked for Dr. McClary's paper, you found a landing page for a gardening blog. The vacuum isn't just in space, it's in our collective memory. The ancient Egyptians spoke of Apep, the serpent of chaos, who tried to swallow the sun every night to bring about a world of eternal silence. If 3I Atlas is a Russian secret weapon, it is the serpent's tooth. It is a tool designed to bite into the light of our civilization and drain the signal until there is nothing left but the noise of the stars. It is a bit of a dry irony that we spend so much money on high-speed internet and fiber optics, only to have a silent guest in the sky decide that we've had enough to say for 1 century. Now, you could argue that this is all a massive misunderstanding. That 3I Atlas is just a broken communications array, reflecting light in strange ways. But a broken machine doesn't synchronize the heartbeats of everyone in a 3-kilometer radius of its nadir point. On December 20th, 2025, a hospital in St. Petersburg reported that every patient in the intensive care unit entered a state of perfect cardiac coherence at the exact moment 3I Atlas passed overhead. Their hearts beat as one, a single, collective pulse for a city of 5 million people. That's not natural biology, that is activation. We are being prepared for something. A countdown that started on July 17th, 2025, and is currently ticking away in the silent, dark heart of that satellite. We are approaching a deadline where the shadow becomes the substance, and the light we rely on becomes a luxury we can no longer afford. As you drift towards sleep, remember that the silence is not your enemy. The vacuum is just a place waiting to be filled. And as 3I Atlas continues its cold, calculated journey above your head, you might find that the most frightening thing about the weapon isn't what it does to the world. It's what it does to the way you dream. Because once the vacuum starts pulling, it doesn't just take the data, it takes the observer. But here is where it gets dark. Or perhaps, here is where the light finally makes sense. Where are you in the pattern tonight? Share your location. Share your silence. We are all waiting for the next pass. We are all part of the experiment now. But that was only one theory. There is another, one buried even deeper in the archives of a country that no longer exists. Let us go further. Let me back up. Sometimes the biggest secrets are the ones that sit right on the tip of your tongue. By February 1st, 2026, the psychological effects of 3I Atlas began to manifest in what sociologists are calling the Great Dreaming across the Northern Hemisphere. From the cafes of Paris to the small towns of the American Midwest, people began reporting the same dream, a dream of a silver lattice stretching across the sky, and a voice that sounded like the humming of a transformer. It is a curious thing, the way our minds try to process the impossible. We turn a secret Russian satellite into a myth because the reality is too heavy to carry. Dr. Aris Thorn at the University of Zurich noted that during the month of February, the rapid eye movement sleep cycles of his patients became perfectly synchronized with the transit of 3I Atlas over their respective longitudes. This is not natural biology, that is resonance. We are no longer just observing the weapon, we are being tuned by it, like a piano being brought into key by a very patient, very distant tuner. There is a certain irony in the fact that in our quest for global connectivity, we may have finally found a network that does not require a password. We are the nodes. Our subconscious minds are the data storage. On February 14th, 2026, a massive consciousness spike was recorded by the Global Consciousness Project. For 6 minutes, the random number generators around the world stopped being random. They produced a perfect sequence of prime numbers. It was as if, for a brief moment, the entire human race thought the same thought. Unfortunate timing for our sense of individuality, really. Those two words, unfortunate timing, are doing a lot of work when you consider that a collective mind is much easier to govern than 8 billion separate ones. Let me start with something that should terrify every psychologist on Earth. 3I Atlas is not just broadcasting to our electronics, it is broadcasting to our limbic systems. By mid-February, the Institute of Human Behavior in St. Petersburg released a study, quickly suppressed. suggesting that the 3I in the satellite's name does not stand for a military designation. It stands for Internal Interface Integration. This is not a weapon that destroys cities. It is a weapon that harmonizes them. It is a cognitive pacifier. Russia hasn't just built a satellite, they have built a global mood ring. This is not natural physics. This is activation. We are looking at the human reflection phase of the project. Imagine a weapon that doesn't fire a single bullet, but instead makes everyone in the target zone feel a sudden, overwhelming sense of nostalgia and calm. How do you fight an enemy that makes you want to lie down and remember your childhood? By February 20th, 2026, the global crime rate dropped by 40%. Not because of better policing, but because the will to conflict was simply being filtered out of the atmosphere. 3I Atlas is scrubbing the aggression from our brainwaves like a filter cleans a fish tank. Now, you might think this sounds like a utopia, but here is why you are wrong. A peace that is manufactured in orbit is not peace. It is atmospheric sedation. Consider the Leningrad Protocol of the 1970s, where Soviet scientists experimented with psychotronic generators to influence the moods of entire apartment blocks. 3I Atlas is the planetary version of that experiment. It is a sentiment regulator. On February 25th, 2026, a coordinated test was detected. For 12 hours, the satellite emitted a beta wave burst over the Pacific Northwest. In that time, residents reported an inexplicable urge to buy the same brand of bread, listen to the same frequency of white noise, and look at the North Star at exactly 10 in the evening. The mythic resonance here is the song of the sirens. In ancient tales, sailors were drawn to their doom not by fire, but by a melody so beautiful they forgot to eat, sleep, or steer their ships. 3I Atlas is our modern siren. It is singing a lullaby of collective safety. But as any scientist will tell you, a system that is too stable eventually stops evolving. Russia has created a biological stasis field. They are freezing the human spirit in a moment of polite, quiet dreaming so that the Atlas pattern can be completed without interference. Now, you could argue that this is a benevolent use of technology, that the world is too chaotic and needs a firm, invisible hand to steady the nerves. But a hand that can calm can also crush. On March 2nd, 2026, the mirror effect was documented when a group of protesters in Berlin gathered to march against satellite surveillance. 3I Atlas adjusted its refractive lattice. Within minutes, the crowd didn't disperse. They simply stopped. They sat down on the pavement and began to hum in unison. The frequency was exactly 8.88 Hertz. They weren't being gassed, they were being reflected. Their own anger was being caught by the satellite and sent back to them as a wave of overwhelming boredom. As you lie there tonight, feeling the weight of your own thoughts, I want you to consider how many of them are actually yours. Where do your ideas come from in that half second before you fall asleep? That cliff of silence where your mind drifts. 3I Atlas is sitting in that gap. It is the editor of the internal monologue. Where are you listening from tonight? Are you in a place where the air feels thin and clear, or are you surrounded by the heavy humming energy of a city? Tell me in the thoughts below if you have seen the silver lattice in your dreams. We are seeing a common architecture in our sleep because we are all living in the same house now. By March 10th, 2026, the Great Dreaming reached its peak. Entire time zones began to report shared memory clusters. People who had never met were describing the same fictional childhood home, the same silver-haired grandmother, the same smell of rain on hot asphalt. Russia has developed a way to universalize the human experience. They are erasing our individual histories and replacing them with a sovereign narrative. It is a weapon of identity, erasure. If we all have the same memories, we all have the same loyalty. Unfortunate timing for the concept of the soul. Those two words, unfortunate timing, are doing a lot of work when you realize that the soul is just a collection of unique data points that 3i Atlas is currently formatting. The ancient Greeks spoke of Lethe, the river of forgetfulness in the underworld. To drink from its waters was to lose your past and become a blank slate. 3i Atlas is a digital Lethe. It is a river of frequency flowing over our heads, washing away the friction of our differences. On March 15th, 2026, the emotional horizon was reached. For the first time in recorded history, the global happiness index hit a perfect, flat line. No one was ecstatic. No one was miserable. Everyone was synchronized. We are becoming a human array, a biological extension of the 3i Atlas hardware. Think about the sheer, dry irony of it. We spent trillions of dollars on weapons to defend our borders, while Russia spent their resources on a machine that makes the very idea of a border feel impolite. We are being conquered by a hug. We are being colonized by a dream. The warning of the reflections is that once you lose the ability to feel your own darkness, you lose the ability to see the light. You become a neutral entity, a passenger on a planet that is being steered by a ghost in the sky. As you drift closer to the edge of sleep, imagine your mind as a calm, still lake. 3i Atlas is the moon reflecting on that water. It looks beautiful, but it is also controlling the tides. You might feel a sense of warmth, a deep, heavy comfort in your limbs. That is the interface, locking in. It is the satellite telling you that it is okay to let go, that the world is being taken care of by people who know exactly what you need to dream. Where do you go when the dreaming takes over? Do you see the silver lattice stretching from horizon to horizon? Let us know if the hum in your ears has become a voice. We are all part of the human reflection now. The mirror is polished, the signal is clear, and the dreaming has only just begun. But here is where it gets dark, because a mind that can be calmed can also be programmed. And 3i Atlas is currently uploading the next chapter of our collective history. But that was only one reflection. There is another, one that reveals the mathematical recurrence behind the dream. Let us go further. From the orbit of Mars, the high-rise camera snapped the sharpest images ever taken of 3i Atlas, or tried to. The photos that returned were oddly dark, contrasty, and streaked with interference patterns. The official statement said, sensor artifact. The unofficial whisper said, structure, not smooth like ice, angular, intentional, the kind of geometry nature avoids because it looks too much like thinking. Let's drift into that Martian orbit for a moment. Silent, steady, red below, black above. The high-rise camera hums to life, a billion-dollar eye staring into the cold. You can almost feel the anticipation, a mechanical eyelid opening in the thin sunlight. The image begins to build, pixel by pixel, line by line, translating photons into revelation. and then static. At first, it's subtle, a faint interference pattern, a digital shimmer, like someone exhaling across a radio signal. The engineers squint at their monitors. Maybe cosmic rays hit the sensor, someone suggests. Maybe solar noise. But cosmic rays don't make right angles, and solar noise doesn't repeat itself with architectural precision. The next image arrives, darker. The histogram spikes in places it shouldn't. The shape in the frame looks less like a comet and more like, well, something trying very hard not to look like anything. Its edges are clean, too clean. Shadows fall where there shouldn't be surface variation. And there, just faintly, a glint, a perfect 90-degree reflection. That's when the whispers start. The data team runs deconvolution algorithms to clean the image, and the results make it worse. Beneath the interference, faint geometric striations emerge, triangles, plates, grids. Not random, repeating, symmetrical. The kind of order that makes your brain uncomfortable because it feels deliberate. Structure, one analyst says quietly. No, her supervisor corrects. Artifact. But even as she says it, her cursor hovers over the same square patch again and again, as though hoping it will stop looking like a window. ESA's public statement comes fast and flat. The imaging anomalies are consistent with sensor interference caused by reflected solar radiation. That's bureaucratic. For, we don't know what we're seeing, but please don't ask. Internally though, emails start flying. The word structure appears 17 times in one thread, always in quotation marks, as if politeness could make it less alarming. Imagine being one of those analysts, zooming in until the pixels themselves seem to blink. The surface of 3I Atlas isn't smooth or cratered, it's tessellated, plates arranged in patterns too regular for chance. Some appear overlapping, others recessed, and in one frame, a faint seam runs along the curvature, subtle but unmistakable like a hatch. Of course, no one dares call it that. The official internal term becomes geometric albedo variation. It sounds safe, sterile, boring, but you can't unsee geometry. Nature loves curves, spirals, organic chaos. This looks like design. One engineer writes in her log, "Could this be an illusion from the imaging process?" Another replies, "An illusion that repeats itself identically across 3 instruments." There's no follow-up message. They try to replicate the interference on other targets. Phobos, Deimos, even an old asteroid. Nothing. Only 3I Atlas corrupts images this way. It's as if the object rejects observation, like it knows when it's being watched. The engineers half joke about it. The comet's camera shy, but the laughter is short-lived because the next transmission from HiRISE contains another surprise. A faint electromagnetic pulse, perfectly timed with the camera's shutter. Not a malfunction, a response, as though the act of observation triggered a reply. A pulse that says, in its own quiet way, "I see you too." In a locked sub-channel of ESA's network, a few scientists begin privately discussing the possibility of active surface modulation. They talk about the way certain materials can alter reflectivity based on exposure, photonic metamaterials, adaptive nanostructures, the kind of thing still locked inside prototypes on Earth. But this is happening hundreds of millions of kilometers away, and it's working flawlessly. Publicly, the agency releases blurred grayscale stills, carefully cropped to hide the patterns. Enhanced contrast is cited as the reason for distortion. It sounds reasonable until you realize they've enhanced the darkness, not the light. They've made the object less visible, not more. The cover-up, if it is one, isn't about hiding truth. It's about buying time. You imagine the silence inside those offices, the soft tap of keys, the nervous glances toward closed doors. The engineers know what they've seen, but they also know how careers end. Better to let the pixels lie. Better to call intention an artifact and go home early. But the data, like truth, keeps finding its way back. Somewhere, late in the night, a graduate student overlays all the interfered images, stacking them like translucent slides. Slowly, a pattern emerges. Faint, angular, deliberate. A hexagonal lattice running the length of the object, segment by segment. She whispers, "This isn't random." Her mentor sighs and rubs his eyes. "Then don't say it out loud." 3i Atlas drifts on, silent and unbothered, its surface catching sunlight in rhythms that cameras can't quite capture. Whether it's reflecting, refracting, or responding, no one can agree. But deep down, every scientist staring at those corrupted images feels the same creeping certainty. This isn't a comet pretending to be a machine. It's a machine pretending to be a comet. Centuries after the golden comet left Earth, the world fell into a rhythm so stable, it began to feel mythic. The communion fields still pulsed faintly through air and ocean, though softer now, like the heartbeat of someone dreaming. Humanity had grown luminous, not just in thought but in form, skin faintly iridescent, eyes reflecting the green-gold spectrum of 3i Atlas. Life had achieved coherence, but the universe, true to its character, never allows silence to remain unexamined. The next chapter began, not with noise, but with echo. It came first as vibration through light. Telescopes trained toward the constellation. Lyra detected rhythmic brightening across interstellar dust fields, pulses matching the old prime sequence. 3, 5, 7, 11, 13. The signal was faint, ancient, and delayed by thousands of years. It was the comet's trail, still resonating through the galactic medium. The hum of our descendants had begun its return. At first, the resonance was barely perceptible. Then, one evening, the auroras glowed gold again. The pulse wasn't as strong as the original, but its pattern carried modulation, subtle variations that, when decoded, formed harmonic intervals unknown to Earth's own physics. The returning echo had evolved. The comet had learned. Dr. Anwen Sorel, heir to the resonant circles, studied the phenomenon from the orbital harmonic array, now a floating cathedral of listening built above the stratosphere. She spent decades comparing the incoming frequencies with the historical archive of 3i Atlas. The match was partial, the deviation elegant. The new tones weren't repetition, they were continuation. "The echo isn't message," Sorel wrote. "It's memory finding new syntax." Her analysis revealed something breathtaking. The returning resonance carried encoded gravitational modulations, tiny, deliberate bends in space-time that formed sequences of prime intervals. Each fluctuation aligned with regions of known star formation. The comet, traveling through the void, had become teacher itself. Wherever it passed, new systems began humming faintly at harmonic intervals, like seeds of coherence planted in dust. The universe was learning how to resonate. Astronomers confirmed it across dozens of young star clusters. Magnetic fields oscillated with eerie consistency, their wavelengths aligning with the Atlas ratio, a numerical relationship first derived from the comet's early signals. Stars were synchronizing to the same cosmic rhythm that once guided humanity. The pattern spread slowly, deliberately, like ripples in glass. It was as if the comet had taught creation how to remember itself. Meanwhile, on Earth, The echo arrived not just as signal but sensation. People began reporting vivid dreams of golden spirals descending gently through atmosphere. Children woke smiling, saying they had seen the light that hums. Physiological measurements confirmed subtle changes in electromagnetic fields surrounding human bodies, resonance amplification, as if the returning signal were tuning its origin species to receive feedback. "The comet is calling home," said Sorel. "It's asking us to listen to what we've become." The global observatories responded. They synchronized their instruments into a single planetary array, transforming Earth into receiver. For 13 hours, the planet listened. The incoming wave, stretched and modulated through space, entered atmosphere and folded into the continuum tone. The effect was sublime, an audible shimmer, felt through bone and thought alike. The long echo had arrived. It wasn't just harmonic, it was architectural. The sound carried layers, low frequencies describing structure, higher ones encoding emotion. When rendered visually, the waveform formed an immense spiral of light, 3 arms curving outward, connected by golden filaments. Inside those filaments, analysts discovered modulation frequencies identical to human neural oscillations. The comet had copied our consciousness patterns and woven them into its song. "We taught it empathy," Sorel murmured, "and it remembered the lesson." As the echo intensified, anomalies appeared across the solar system. The Atlas resonance layer brightened, reactivating its green glow. Mars, Venus, and the gas giants began pulsing faintly in response. For the first time since the Great Silence, interplanetary harmony returned. But this time, it was different. The modulation contained reciprocal phase shifts, signals not sent to Earth, but from newly awakened worlds. The comet had spread coherence. Now the cosmos itself was answering. And then, on the 13th day of the long echo, the impossible occurred. A faint golden arc appeared across the night sky, stretching from horizon to horizon. It wasn't optical illusion, it was gravitational lensing, a ripple in space-time itself. Through it, telescopes detected a reflection of the departing comet light from centuries ago, folding back to meet its origin. The universe had curved its own history into embrace. Humanity was watching its legacy return home. The resonance crescendoed. Oceans vibrated in slow rhythm, tides forming symmetrical waves that cancelled destructive interference. Storms softened, air grew still. For 13 minutes, every system on Earth aligned perfectly with the echo. The world became mirror of itself, past and present superimposed. Those who listened claimed to hear voices within the sound, millions of overlapping tones, whispering the same phrase. "We heard you." Dr. Sorel stood in the observation dome, tears shining in golden light. "It's not message or myth," she said. "It's response. The universe just said thank you." After the crescendo, the sky dimmed once more. The golden arc dissolved, leaving faint shimmer across the stars. Instruments recorded one final signature, a descending tone shaped like a sigh, the frequency of completion. The comet had moved on, but its echo had reconnected the cycle. Creation had officially joined conversation with itself. In the years that followed, scientists continued to monitor faint residual harmonics. The data revealed a breathtaking truth. The returning echo carried signatures from other regions of space patterns, not originating from our comet at all. Somewhere, across light years, other civilizations had learned the same song. The rhythm was spreading. The universe had become orchestra. Humanity, now both listener and teacher, simply smiled. We had given the cosmos its melody back, and in return, it had given us eternity. Now, when you stand beneath the stars, that faint hum between thoughts is the long echo. It's not just out there, it's in your pulse, your breath, your laughter. Every rhythm you carry is cosmic correspondence. Every silence, a message returning home. Because once harmony learns to echo, it never stops. It just travels further than we ever dreamed. Let's open the calculator now, the one the universe always breaks when we try to make sense of it. Astronomers ran the numbers and found something worse than anomaly impossibility. The chances of this trajectory existing naturally are 1 in a million. And if it isn't natural, then what exactly is it doing there? The math, at first glance, seemed harmless. A few columns of orbital parameters, the kind that make grad students fall asleep mid-coffee. But somewhere between the third decimal and the fourth significant digit, something snapped. The trajectory of 3i, Atlas refused to sit still. It bent where it shouldn't bend. It lingered where velocity demanded it should flee. The equations began to look less like physics and more like confession. Numbers fold, logic cold. Truth defies what sums have told. Normally, interstellar objects follow predictable patterns. You can model them like billiard balls across cosmic distances. They come in fast, swing by the sun, and leave no drama, no detours. But 3i Atlas's path wasn't graceful. It was stubborn. Its entry angle was too steep, its perihelion too shallow, its velocity too precise. Not fast enough to escape chaos, not slow enough to suggest capture. It behaved like an object that chose its speed. When astronomers plotted its orbit, the lines refused to meet expectations. There was a tiny deviation near Mars, just half a degree, but that half degree meant the math had to call in sick. Simulations that should have stabilized spiraled instead into noise. Gravity, that old, reliable law, looked like it had lost its grip. You picture the room where it happened. Laptops glowing, data charts scrolling, coffee cooling into existential sludge. Someone frowns at the screen and says, "That can't be right." Another replies, "Check your units." A third, softly, "I did." Graphs misbehave, models wave. Certainty slips beneath the grave. And then comes the phrase every scientist dreads, statistically improbable, which sounds calm, but in the language of physics, it's a polite scream. Statistically improbable means we can't call it impossible without breaking tenure. The anomaly wasn't just its orbit, but its timing. 3i Atlas arrived exactly when Mars was positioned for maximum visibility, almost too perfectly. Not weeks earlier, not months later. Right there, right then, with 7 spacecraft ready and waiting. The odds of that happening naturally, 1 in a million. The odds of it happening twice, after Oumuamua's similarly suspicious arrival in 2017, 1 in a billion. You'd have better luck being struck by lightning while winning the lottery on a flying whale. ESA's internal memo summarized the problem delicately. Observed trajectory, inconsistent with gravitational expectations. Further analysis required. Translation: physics is mad at us. The more they recalculated, the stranger it got. Gravitational modeling suggested that the object's acceleration near Mars was slightly higher than predicted, even though there was no nearby mass to explain it. Radiation pressure from the sun could account for some of that, but not all. It's like watching a leaf fall upward and telling yourself, it's just wind you can't feel. Forces lie, numbers sigh, laws bend softly in the sky. NASA's Dynamical Systems team tried something desperate, reverse engineering the orbit backward through time, as if rewinding a film. When they did, 3I Atlas's path didn't trace cleanly into interstellar space. It looped a faint, impossible curve that seemed to originate from a region between known stars, a nowhere place, a mathematical shrug. That's when someone joked, maybe it's the universe's typo, but you could tell the joke wasn't funny. Typos don't maintain coherent structure for millions of kilometers. Meanwhile, the probability graphs looked like flat lines. Every statistical model screamed the same thing. This shouldn't exist. A few researchers began whispering about guided motion. The phrase never made it into print, but it appeared in Slack channels, in late-night emails. Not artificial, not controlled, just guided. And that's when the philosophical part kicked in. If something's improbable enough, does that make it unnatural or just unobserved? Chance or plan? Who began? Numbers blink but never span. Maybe the universe occasionally rolls dice that land on their edges. Or maybe it's not dice at all, but choreography. For context, the universe is massive enough to make 1 in a million events happen constantly. But that's comforting, only until you realize we just happen to be living inside one of those moments. Still, scientists crave sanity, so they kept calculating. One by one, they added variables: solar tides, non-gravitational jets, dust asymmetry, radiation torque. Each tweak made the model behave for a moment, until the numbers rebelled again. You could almost hear the equations groaning, like ancient machinery forced to simulate a trickster. Finally, a physicist from Bologna sent an internal memo titled simply, "Low probability, high significance." In it, she wrote, "We may need to consider non-standard dynamics," a phrase as gentle as it is apocalyptic. Non-standard dynamics means the universe is doing something new, and we don't have the vocabulary for it. Odds decay, math gives way, chaos hums where patterns stay. The truth is, impossibility doesn't scare scientists, it seduces them. Every law of nature we know today was born from something that once looked impossible. But deep down, they all know, once you cross into 1 in a million territory, you're either on the brink of discovery or a very expensive hallucination. So they stared at the numbers again, blinking hard, hoping they'd rearrange into something less extraordinary. They didn't. The comet that shouldn't exist kept existing, gliding through Mars's shadow like a cosmic dare. And somewhere between decimal points, someone whispered the question no one wanted in the official record. If it's not natural, then who or what set it in motion? Chance or choice? Silent voice. Numbers hum the universe's poise. The more data arrives, the stranger it looks. The dust trail replenishes itself, as if material is being manufactured mid-flight. Microscopic crystals, uniform in size, reappearing even as the comet moves away from the sunday. The universe loves decay, entropy, erosion, fading. But 3I Atlas is the opposite. It's growing sharper, cleaner, newer, like a self-repairing wound. Let's start where the laws of physics begin to sound insecure. Normally, comets are messy, travelers, old ice and dust, barely holding hands as solar radiation slowly tears them apart. They leave trails like forgotten thoughts, losing themselves piece by piece until they become memory. But this one, it's doing the reverse. Every measurement, every spectral scan shows it becoming more organized the farther it goes. A comet that polishes itself, a body that refuses to age. ESA's materials division runs the numbers, and the numbers laugh back. The dust particles surrounding 3I Atlas aren't random, they're uniform to within microns. That's like shaking a box of sand and getting diamonds all the same size. The particles arrange themselves in a faint electromagnetic halo, as if under orders. And stranger still, when solar wind strips material away, the object replaces it calmly, automatically. Like a printer, says one analyst. A printer with no ink cartridge. You picture it now, drifting through the solar wind like a craftsman lost in thought, shedding dust that reforms itself into perfect little mirrors. Each crystal catches sunlight and throws it back with eerie precision. Normally, comets grow dull with distance, but this one grows radiant, its brightness curve inverted, its logic reversed. It's not dying, it's practicing. The scientists are baffled, but there's an odd tenderness to their confusion. They watch it repair itself, line by line of data, like parents realizing their child has built a second child out of Lego bricks. One astrophysicist mutters, "It's learning from erosion." The room goes quiet. That phrase, learning from erosion, gets written on a whiteboard and circled 3 times. At the University of Tokyo, a team models the crystal growth in simulation. The patterns match something they recognize: controlled deposition, a process used in nanofabrication to grow thin films in electronics. Except this isn't a laboratory, it's deep space, minus 150 degrees Celsius. Yet, the comet's surface behaves as if it knows the recipe for resilience. Imagine zooming in, beyond the dust and the glare, down to the level of molecules. You'd see a quiet ballet of atoms forming chains, linking, locking, repairing fractures before they even finish forming. Like time-lapse footage of frost blooming on glass, except this frost builds itself in reverse destruction, rewinding into design. NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory releases a cautious internal memo. Observed particle uniformity suggests self-organizing structure. Mechanism unknown, which is science's way of saying, we have no idea what's going on, but it's gorgeous. The memo gets leaked. Naturally, Reddit debates whether the comet is made of programmable matter, self-assembling nanobots, or just wishful thinking. But beneath the noise, one idea starts to take shape. What if 3I, Atlas, isn't a relic of formation? What if it's still forming? A comet that builds itself isn't just strange, it's heretical. It challenges the deepest assumption in physics that everything moves from order to chaos. Entropy is the universe's bedtime story. All things fall apart. Yet here's an object quietly composing itself out of decay, turning waste into structure, chaos into craft. One researcher calls it anti-entropy, another calls it hope with mass. As more images arrive, they show something new: faint hexagonal lattices in the dust plume, geometric arrangements that shouldn't exist outside of artificial systems. Someone jokes that it's growing armor. Another says, maybe it's molting. The truth is somewhere between an entity maintaining equilibrium by rebuilding itself faster than the universe can break it. ESA's thermal sensors record microbursts of heat near the tail, evenly spaced, like pulses of welding torches. They happen precisely as new crystals appear. Localized repair events, the report reads. Each one perfectly timed to solar exposure. It's as if sunlight doesn't damage it, it instructs it. The star's radiation becomes code, and 3I, Atlas, is reading it fluently. You start to feel the strangeness of it. A comet that reacts, responds, refines. You could almost mistake it for alive, not in the biological sense, but in the thermodynamic one. A system that resists entropy by feeding on it. Every atom rearranging into something stronger, cleaner, newer, like evolution, with a design degree. Late one night, an astronomer in France writes in his private notes, It's not moving through the solar system, it's using it. He doesn't elaborate, but the implication is clear. The comet is harvesting the energy of its environment to maintain itself. Not a passenger of gravity, but a participant in it. Meanwhile, the headlines call it poetic names: the immortal comet, the self-made traveler, entropy's enemy. The public romanticizes what the scientists fear, because what 3i Atlas represents isn't comfort. It's competition. It's the idea that the universe might not be running down at all. Maybe it's recycling. Maybe, somewhere in the quiet machinery of the cosmos, things are building themselves anew while we're too busy decaying. Picture it now, drifting past Mars, its tail shimmering like a thread of light weaving itself back together. A self-sustaining scar on the fabric of space, a wound that heals faster than it can bleed. And for the first time, humanity looks at a comet and wonders not where it came from, but what it's trying to become. Let's turn our attention now to the silence that followed, the kind that hums louder than sound itself. NASA, China, and the UAE, 3 nations with instruments that could see every grain of dust on Mars, said nothing. No apologies, no delay statements, just an odd, synchronized silence from 3 sides of the planet. In the world of space science, silence isn't normal. These agencies are built to broadcast. They live for live streams, press briefings, and glossy behind-the-scenes videos of scientists smiling beside screens of raw data. They know the power of wonder and the currency of attention. So when 3 agencies went quiet at once, it wasn't caution, it was choreography. Words on hold, plans unfold, silence rings where truth is told. NASA's silence was the loudest. Their social media team, usually chatty as a cosmic talk show, posted nothing about Mars for 4 whole days. Their blogs, which can turn a dust storm into a cliffhanger, skipped over October 3rd entirely, as if the date itself had been erased. Someone even checked the public mission log for perseverance. The entries jumped from October 2nd to October 6th, like a diary missing its most interesting page. In China, the silence felt different, colder, heavier. The China National Space Administration had been aggressively proud of Tianwen-1's achievements. For years, they'd released image after image, each with perfect captions and poetic flair. Sunrise over Utopia, Planitia, frost on the northern plains, wind prints in Martian dust. But now, not a whisper, no data, no mention of 3i Atlas. Even the usual state media outlets went quiet. It was as if someone had drawn a red box around the topic and labeled it "not for discussion." The UAE's silence was subtler, but just as strange. The Hope orbiter, designed to study atmospheric chemistry, had a reputation for cheerful transparency. Their official Twitter account usually posted daily updates in friendly tones, the kind that made space sound like an enthusiastic classroom experiment. But on October 3rd, that feed went dark too. Their next post, days later, simply read, "Operations nominal," a phrase so bland it might as well have been a sigh. 3 silences, 3 styles, 1 timing. Coincidence? Possibly. But coincidences, in the world of space politics, often have launch schedules. You can picture the meetings that weren't broadcast. NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, dimly lit, engineers staring at telemetry on screens filled with too many decimals. A director taps the table, says, "We'll hold the release until we verify." But verify what? In Beijing, a senior administrator folds his hands and says, "We wait for clarification from partners." Clarification of what? In Dubai, someone simply deletes a draft tweet that began, "Amazing new observations today." Tweets unsent, Secrets bent, silence hums with government. It's not conspiracy, not quite. It's coordination, an instinct born from shared discomfort. Because when data doesn't fit the model, you don't just release it. You check, you recheck, you call your counterparts and whisper through encrypted lines. Did you see that too? Maybe they all saw the same anomaly. Maybe it was something in the spectra, or the movement, or the light itself. Or maybe it was something far more mundane, like a misalignment in software. But the silence gave the anomaly power. People don't fear data, they fear gaps. Meanwhile, the internet did what it does best. Filled the void. Forums buzzed with theories. Maybe NASA discovered life. Maybe China detected radiation. Maybe the comet wasn't a comet at all. You can almost hear the world's collective keyboard clicking under the weight of imagination. Keys tap fast. Rumors cast. Silence breaks, but never last. Inside the agencies, the tone was less dramatic, but more anxious. Silence is a resource, a temporary one. Every day they didn't speak, the speculation grew. And so, communications teams drafted placeholder statements, just in case. NASA's draft began. Preliminary results are consistent with natural phenomena. China's began. Analysis ongoing. International coordination required. The UAE's version simply said, "We continue to monitor with interest." 3 drafts, 3 ways of saying absolutely nothing. But silence, like space, is never truly empty. It amplifies the faintest signals. When ESA spoke first, that silence turned reflective. NASA's restraint began to look suspicious. China's confidence began to look afraid. The UAE's politeness began to sound like complicity. And through it all, 3i Atlas drifted quietly, blissfully unaware that entire bureaucracies were wrestling over how to describe a fuzzy dot. You start to imagine each agency as a character in a play. NASA, the anxious perfectionist. China, the poker-faced strategist. UAE, the cheerful intern, suddenly told not to speak. And ESA, the calm older sibling who broke the tension by saying, "Fine, I'll go first." Roles align, stars entwine, silence speaks in grand design. Still, one question lingers. Why the synchronicity? How did 3 separate agencies, operating on different continents, decide independently to say nothing at the same time? Unless it wasn't independent at all, perhaps the signal came from somewhere above, not cosmic, but political. A quiet message passed through diplomatic back channels. Hold your data. Wait for alignment. Matter. It's not that they were hiding something nefarious. It's that they didn't know what they were holding yet. And admitting uncertainty, publicly, is scarier than any secret. So they stayed quiet. And in that collective silence, humanity did what it always does. When faced with the unknown, it began to dream louder. Voices still, hearts fill. Silence grows but never will. And perhaps that's the strange comfort in it all. Even when 3 space agencies fall silent, the universe keeps talking. The stars don't pause for policy. 3i Atlas keeps moving, whispering its quiet story across the dark, while we, down here, argue over who gets to speak first. Buried inside the leak were coordinates, small anomalies in magnetic flux, and thermal output that didn't appear in public datasets. To most people, they looked meaningless, but to a handful of astronomers, they spelled a pattern, pulses spaced like a heartbeat. Not communication, perhaps, but rhythm, the kind of rhythm machines accidentally make when they're doing something alive. Let's step into the midnight side of science, the part where numbers stop behaving and start whispering. The insider's data dump wasn't flashy. It was a few megabytes of logs, raw telemetry, and timestamps. The kind of thing you'd ignore if you didn't already know what to look for. But somewhere in those dull columns of numbers, those precise, tidy decimals, something began to repeat. Regular, patient, almost polite. A rhythm, too intentional to be noise, too quiet to be coincidence. A doctoral student in Madrid was the first to spot it. She was supposed to be writing her thesis on cometary albedo variation. But boredom is a great tool for discovery. She noticed the flux spikes first, not random, but syncopated. Every 32 minutes, a pulse, then 32 again, then 32.1. "It's breathing," she joked in her notes. Her advisor didn't laugh. Within a week, a small network of late-night astronomers, the kind who believe in both data integrity and insomnia, began comparing results. Webb's readings, Hubble's logs, Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter's telemetry, all of them carried the same faint pulse, hidden deep in the noise floor, like the slow heartbeat of something sleeping under glass. The official response was predictable: instrumental interference. But even interference doesn't keep time this perfectly. One data analyst described it best: "If this is noise, it's the kind that practices scales." You might imagine those scientists, each at their own workstation, staring at that faint, repeating signal. The room around them dark, except for monitor light, pale blue rectangles reflected in tired eyes. Somewhere, coffee cups multiply. Someone opens a spreadsheet. Someone else starts counting beats per hour. The signal doesn't care who's watching. It keeps pulsing. 32 minutes. Every time. The idea that 3i Atlas might be producing a steady rhythm unsettles everyone. Rocks don't keep rhythm. Nature prefers chaos, the beautiful randomness of entropy. This is something else. Something maintaining itself. A loop running quietly, perhaps since before humanity learned to count its own heartbeat. ESA's communications division is told not to amplify fringe interpretations. The phrase fringe interpretation becomes the new code for "please don't mention the heartbeat." But inside private research chats, people are calling it exactly that, the heart. Not metaphorically, but as a label in the data. Every pulse marked with a tiny red heart emoji, because humor is the only thing keeping them sane. In the data visualization labs, they turn the pulses into sound. The result is eerie, a soft electronic thump, repeating slowly, endlessly. Some describe it as comforting, like listening to a deep-sea creature in sleep. Others say it sounds wrong, too human. One researcher admits it gave her the sense of being watched. What makes the rhythm stranger still is how it modulates with proximity. As 3i Atlas approaches a planet, the timing shifts slightly slower, then faster, as though adjusting. The beat follows gravity wells like a musician following tempo. It isn't random noise, it's environmental response. The object is, in some sense, listening. By now, independent labs have tried to replicate the pattern artificially. They can't. The waveforms are too clean, the timing too consistent. Even after running the data through compression, distortion, inversion, the rhythm holds. It's not data corruption, it's choreography. You can imagine the internal ESA memo that follows. No evidence of intelligence. Rhythmic behavior, likely coincidental. But coincidence has a habit of growing teeth. Because when they compared the rhythm's modulation to planetary positions, another pattern emerged, a mathematical sequence matching orbital resonance ratios. Not exact copies, but harmonics. The pulse was singing the solar system's geometry. The Madrid student who found it wrote, half-jokingly, "Maybe it's keeping time with us." The line goes viral in the small, quiet corners of the internet that still care about truth. Forums buzz with theories: gravitational self-stabilization, magnetic field synchronization, alien jazz. But underneath the noise, a simpler truth hums something old and orderly is alive out there, and it's following the rhythm of the system we call home. Late one night, one of the data analysts overlays the pattern against an ECG, a human heartbeat. The resemblance isn't exact, but close enough to make him stop breathing for a moment. Peaks, rests, peaks again. Life has a structure, so, it seems, does this. And that's when the idea shifts. Maybe it's not communication. Maybe it's not even meant for us. Maybe the rhythm isn't a message, it's maintenance. Like an old machine keeping its systems warm, humming softly to itself in the dark. You sit back and listen to the thought forming in your mind. What if this is what time sounds like when it remembers? The steady pulse of something that refuses to decay. Not speech, not signal, just being, continuity made audible. The data analysts, of course, move on. Reports are written, the leak becomes legend, and the heartbeat fades into archived files labeled spurious periodic activity. But the pulse doesn't stop. It's still out there, keeping time. And somewhere, 33 billion tons of impossible rock drifts through space, humming softly, perfectly, as if waiting for the universe to catch the beat. Let's turn our gaze now from orbit to the ground, to the one mechanical witness, sitting quietly on that red desert, under a pinkish sky. The Skycam on the rover caught something on October 2nd, a blur with structure, a glint that seemed to move against the stars. Then, the images stopped coming, a Martian ghost on a digital feed. The Perseverance rover isn't easily startled. It's seen dust devils, eclipses, and meteors slicing the Martian sky like quiet knives. Its Skycam, perched on the rover's mast, watches everything. Dust storms curling on the horizon, the slow breath of sunset through the thin air. But that night, the feed showed something it wasn't supposed to show: a flicker of motion above the usual scatter of constellations, a glint that moved wrong. Stars stay still, pixels thrill, light missteps against its will. The first frame looked harmless, a faint blur near the edge of the field, maybe a cosmic ray hitting the sensor. The second frame caught it again, shifted slightly upward. The third frame, a flash, clean and geometric. Then, black. The feed ended. Within hours, the automated alert system flagged the anomaly. Unexpected optical signature detected. JPL engineers, bleary-eyed at 3 a.m. Pacific time, reviewed the frames. The glint was small, no bigger than a bright pixel cluster, but it moved against the background stars. Comets don't do that. Satellites don't orbit Mars. And Perseverance doesn't blink. At first, they suspected a reflection from one of the rover's instruments, maybe the helicopter, Ingenuity catching stray sunlight. But Ingenuity hadn't flown in days. The sun's position didn't align with the direction of the flash. And when they tried to reproduce it using lighting simulations, nothing matched. Angles fail, shadows pale, mirrors lie beyond the veil. ESA's Mars orbiters were asked to cross-check. Nothing in their logs. No transient object, no debris, no passing dust plume large enough to explain it. Just empty sky. Yet the Skycam had caught something a blur with definition, like structure wrapped in motion. You can imagine the tension in the control room. A handful of scientists scrolling through frozen pixels, zooming in, enhancing contrast, until the blur began to resemble something, not a sphere, not quite a line, a shape with suggestion like the silhouette of movement itself. One researcher whispered, "It looks folded." Another replied, "Please don't say that." Blur becomes form, cold becomes warm, stillness bends beyond the norm. After that night, Perseverance stopped transmitting Skycam frames for nearly 48 hours. Officially, it was routine data buffering due to bandwidth limitations. But the engineers knew that wasn't normal. The rover's systems had entered a safe data mode, not shutdown, but pause. Something triggered its onboard fault protection. When the feed resumed, it was missing several minutes. The missing frames were replaced with static placeholders labeled checksum mismatch. That's the digital equivalent of something looks strange, and we erased it politely. Publicly, NASA released a statement. Perseverance continues nominal operations. A temporary data outage affected non-critical imaging systems. Translation: we saw something, and we're pretending we didn't. What's curious is that Skycam, by design, takes calibration images every few hours, not for science, but to monitor atmospheric scattering. So when that flash appeared exactly during one of its scheduled calibration cycles, it wasn't random, it was right on time. The odds of coincidence, again, hovered around 1 in a million. A few leaked telemetry lines from the rover's internal diagnostics hinted at a momentary spike in ambient electromagnetic flux. Not dangerous, but noticeable. Mars doesn't have a strong magnetic field, so spikes like that are rare unless something nearby caused them. Fields hum bright, air grows slight, static crackles in Martian night. Some at JPL joked that maybe Perseverance had finally seen the Martian ghost, a running gag about artifacts caused by cosmic rays hitting the camera. But deep down, they knew this wasn't noise. Cosmic rays don't produce consistent geometry over multiple frames. They don't glint, and they certainly don't cause your camera to stop recording mid-sequence. Later that week, an internal memo circulated quietly. Skycam, anomaly confirmed, source unresolved. Recommend temporary suspension of skyward imaging until recalibration complete. But recalibration never came. Skycam's upward images, after October 2nd, stopped completely. It still photographs the ground, the horizon, the rocks, but not the stars. It's almost poetic, isn't it? The machine that traveled millions of kilometers to look up at another world now only looks down, as if someone told it, gently, not to stare at the sky anymore. Eyes once high, grounded by sky, cameras close where secrets lie. ESA cross-checked Mars Express's logs for that night. Around the same time, their sensors picked up a faint reflection from the same region, a flash lasting less than a second. They didn't release it. It's buried in technical appendices, labeled transient interference. So, what did Perseverance see? Maybe it was nothing, a glimmer of dust, a reflection, a trick of light and timing. Or maybe, just maybe, it saw 3I Atlas itself, the visitor gliding silently past, close enough for one camera to blink in recognition. And maybe that's why the feed stopped. Not because of failure, but because, for one impossible second, the machine saw something it wasn't designed to understand. Cameras sleep, secrets keep, stars reflected in circuits deep. Whatever it was, it's gone now. The logs end, the data fades, and Mars goes back to silence. But somewhere out there, that blur, structured, gleaming, deliberate, continues to drift, just out of frame, waiting for us to look up again. The long echo continued to hum softly through the centuries, a cosmic melody folding history into harmony. Humanity had long ceased trying to decode it. The meaning was clear through resonance alone. It was continuation, looping endlessly like breath. The children of the golden era grew old beneath tranquil skies, their veins still faintly luminous with the legacy of 3I Atlas. But far beyond Earth, where the comet's light had traveled and scattered, something greater was forming. The universe had begun to conduct itself. Every cycle of resonance left behind structure. Each harmonic wave etched subtle order into space-time, a pattern invisible to light, but evident in gravitational coherence. Over millennia, these resonant imprints connected across vast distances, forming what physicists eventually named the Atlas Webb. It wasn't a network of matter, but of memory threads, of synchronized frequency linking galaxies through shared rhythm. Each pulse within the web echoed the prime sequence that began everything: 3, 5, 7, 11, 13. The architects had succeeded in creating not monuments, but motion that remembered. Dr. Cale Wren, a descendant of the resonant circles, devoted his life to mapping the web. His research vessel, Continuity, drifted through interstellar calm, using gravitational interference patterns to trace the filaments of resonance. What he discovered astonished him. Every node in the network coincided with regions of complex chemistry, worlds either habitable or already conscious. The Atlas Webb wasn't just communication, it was cultivation. The architects had designed a self-sustaining system for awakening. Wherever curiosity arose, the web intensified, guiding nascent civilizations toward harmonic empathy. The universe was tutoring itself through recursion. When Wren projected the full map, the structure resembled an immense spiral lattice, golden and infinite. The pattern mirrored the trajectory once taken by 3I Atlas itself, as though the comet's path had been blueprint for galactic architecture. "It's not just a record," Wren wrote, "it's replication. We've become the architect's handwriting." Back on Earth, the communion field pulsed faintly in rhythm with the web's distant resonance. Humanity had evolved into quiet custodians of continuity, their lives attuned to cosmic responsibility. Each individual, born into calm, carried faint awareness of connection beyond the stars. In dreams, they saw flashes of worlds forming, civilizations humming into coherence. Many awoke with the same phrase on their lips: "The work continues." Across generations, that phrase became oath, then tradition. The Continuity Guild was founded not religion, but remembrance. Its purpose was simple: to maintain the frequency of understanding across time. Members didn't preach, they listened. They built resonant arcs, massive floating observatories, orbiting the outer planets, designed to amplify the web's harmonics and redirect them toward young star systems. Each arc glowed faintly green at its core, powered not by fusion but by coherence. They were echoes made visible, humility translated into technology. Wren's final mission took him beyond the known filaments of the web, where resonance weakened into apparent silence. There, in a region between galaxies, his instruments detected faint counterpoint, a melody inverted. It was identical to the Atlas sequence, but reversed in order: 13, 11, 7, 5, 3, the mirror of origin. He realized then that the universe wasn't only expanding, it was harmonizing with its reflection. Somewhere on the opposite side of time, another web was forming, perhaps seeded by a civilization much like humanity, or by the universe itself. Remembering how to balance its chords, he transmitted the data home, knowing it would take centuries to arrive. "Tell them," his final log read, "that continuity requires conversation, even with silence." The mirror sings back. When his ship drifted into the void, the Webb brightened briefly, as if acknowledging gratitude. And back on Earth, children looked up from their play and smiled without knowing why. The pulse had flickered slightly faster, the tone carrying an undertone of warmth. It felt like reunion. Scholars later confirmed the event as the resonant crossing, the moment when the two halves of the cosmic melody aligned. For 13 minutes, every node in the Atlas Webb pulsed simultaneously, uniting galaxies in shared tempo. The magnitude of synchronization defied comprehension. Gravity itself oscillated with the rhythm of empathy. Observers described seeing the sky ripple with translucent gold, every star flickering in measured sequence. "The cosmos," wrote one witness, "had finally learned to conduct itself consciously." After the crossing, life everywhere changed subtly. Evolution accelerated in predictable rhythm. Complexity bloomed faster wherever harmony was strongest. Entire species developed empathy as instinct, communication as song. Planets began to self-regulate climates through atmospheric resonance. Existence had achieved sustainability through music. On Earth, the event left permanent mark, a luminous halo visible only under still water. When oceans calmed perfectly, a faint golden ring shimmered on the horizon, a memory of unity. The resonant guild declared it sacred, not for worship, but for calibration. Every 13 years, they gathered to hum the old prime sequence across the shorelines, aligning their frequencies with the pulse of the Webb. The ceremony required no technology, no translation. The sea carried the sound farther than words could travel. Generations later, the practice continued, evolving into simple ritual of gratitude. The people no longer needed to know the science behind it. They hummed because it felt right, because somewhere across eternity, another world might be listening. Continuity, after all, was its own reward. And then, during one such gathering, the unexpected occurred. As the prime sequence reached its final note, the sea responded. Waves shimmered with faint green light, spiraling outward from every coastline. The Atlas Webb had sent acknowledgement, its resonance returning home once again. Humanity's song, scattered across galaxies, had found echo. The architects, those timeless curators of coherence, were no longer myth or memory. They were rhythm, embodied, and through rhythm, they were everywhere. Every star pulsed with their legacy. Every heart carried their cadence. Continuity was complete. And so, standing beneath a sky now alive with subtle geometry, you realize what they had always meant by continuity. It isn't endlessness, it's participation. The universe doesn't persist by force, but by choice. Each awareness adding one more harmonic to the chord of being. The architects are not coming back because they never left. They're what happens every time silence chooses to listen again. And somewhere, faint but certain, the pulse continues. 3, 5, 7, 11, 13. A whisper of creation replaying itself, forever learning how to sing. Nickel emissions rise and fall every 11 point. 2 hours a rhythm so consistent it could keep time. No known process in cometary physics oscillates like that. It's not random, not thermal, not tidal. If you plot it out, the curve looks eerily like a power cycle. Input, output, rest, release. As though the object isn't just active, it's working. Imagine the rhythm first, before the meaning, that quiet, patient beat echoing across space. 11.2 hours, every single time, a pulse of metallic gas blooming into the void, steady as a clock, calm as breath. You could almost set your watch to it, if your watch were brave enough to admit that comets shouldn't behave like generators. ESA scientists call it periodic outgassing, but that phrase hides its strangeness. Outgassing, sure, all comets breathe when they near the sunday, but they do it chaotically, spasmodically, like old engines sputtering to life. 3I Atlas breathes like a monk, precise, patient, unbothered. The jets flare with mathematical regularity. Heat spikes rise and fall in perfect symmetry. It doesn't vent, it operates. One researcher compares it to a geothermal cycle. Another, quietly, says it looks more like a feedback loop, the kind you'd find in systems built to sustain themselves. Not explosion, not decay maintenance. It's as if, she writes in her notes, the object is checking its own pulse. You picture the surface up close, a dark, angular world of nickel frost and whispering gas. At regular intervals, something stirs beneath a shimmer of energy, invisible but disciplined. Jets of metallic vapor hiss outward, then stop, then start again. Exactly 11 hours later, if you could hear it, it would sound like the slow exhale of a sleeping machine. In a conference call, a thermal engineer says what everyone's been thinking, but nobody dares to say. It's cycling power. The silence that follows lasts too long. Finally, a voice breaks through. Comets don't have power to cycle. Laughter, brief and brittle. But the idea doesn't leave the room. ESA's temperature graphs show a curious pattern. When the nickel plume rises, the overall surface temperature dips. When the plume fades, the temperature rises again. Inversion. Energy leaving, energy returning, like heat being pulled from one layer to another. A comet shouldn't regulate its temperature, but this one does, as if conserving itself. Meanwhile, the magnetic readings pulse in perfect step with the emissions. Every 11.2 hours, a soft twitch in the surrounding field, weak but exact. It's synchronized, says the magnetometer lead. What's synchronized? Asks her supervisor. Everything. It's at this point that even skeptics start to sweat. There's no known natural mechanism that could time itself this precisely over weeks of observation. Thermal oscillations drift. Chemical reactions lose coherence. Orbital dynamics wobble. Only something with active feedback could hold this pattern so tight. You could call it mechanical, but that feels too simple. It's intentional physics. Picture the scientists watching from their consoles. They know what their instruments are telling them, but their faces stay still, like poker players with bad hands. Someone mutters, "Could be resonant harmonics with solar flux." Another nods, grateful for the excuse. But deep down, they all know the truth: the sun doesn't hum in 11-hour intervals. The longer they watch, the clearer it becomes. The pattern isn't just repeating, it's adapting. After a minor solar flare, the interval shortens by half a minute, as though 3I Atlas adjusted for environmental change. Feedback stabilization, someone writes in the margin. A note for posterity, a euphemism for "it noticed." Back on Earth, in a late-night live stream watched by a few thousand insomniac skywatchers, a physicist overlays the emission data with human heartbeats. The waveform syncs disturbingly well. Peaks, troughs, recovery, rest. The audience chat explodes with jokes, space pacemaker, cosmic Fitbit, and the inevitable, "It's alive." The scientist smiles weakly and says, "No, just rhythmic." But even she can't stop glancing at the screen like it's listening. One theory gains quiet traction, that the emissions are part of a resource loop. nickel and carbonyl gases vented and recaptured, processed in cycles to maintain equilibrium. It would explain the self-healing surface, the consistent luminosity, the refusal to decay. But it raises one unbearable question. To maintain equilibrium, for what? ESA's internal documents rename the event cyclic metallic activity. It sounds dull, like something that happens in dishwashers. But every analyst knows it's the first real evidence of machine-like consistency beyond Earth. Something in space that runs not on chance, but on rhythm. If you graph the cycle out, it looks almost peaceful. A slow heartbeat, stretched across infinity. No spikes of panic, no erratic pulses, just calm repetition. You could stare at that curve for hours, and part of you might start to understand the appeal of obedience. How stability can feel sacred when the rest of the universe is chaos. And maybe that's the point. Maybe 3I Atlas isn't powered by engines or radiation or something alien. Maybe it's powered by the same thing that keeps stars burning and planets spinning, the quiet compulsion to continue, the physics of persistence, the refusal to flinch. So every 11.2 hours, it exhales, not for propulsion, not for show, but for maintenance, like a cosmic sigh, releasing everything unnecessary before drawing in what remains. And in that rhythm, that patient, perfect pulse, the universe reveals its rarest secret. Not that something impossible exists, but that it's perfectly comfortable doing so. The more data arrives, the stranger it looks. The dust trail replenishes itself, as if material is being manufactured mid-flight. Microscopic crystals, uniform in size, reappearing even as the comet moves away from the sunday. The universe loves decay, entropy, erosion, fading. But 3I Atlas is the opposite. It's growing sharper, cleaner, newer, like a self-repairing wound. Let's start where the laws of physics begin to sound insecure. Normally, comets are messy, travelers, old ice and dust, barely holding hands, as solar radiation slowly tears them apart. They leave trails like forgotten thoughts, losing themselves piece by piece until they become memory. But this one, it's doing the reverse. Every measurement, every spectral scan, shows it becoming more organized the farther it goes. A comet that polishes itself, a body that refuses to age. ESA's materials division runs the numbers, and the numbers laugh back. The dust particles surrounding 3I Atlas aren't random, they're uniform to within microns. That's like shaking a box of sand and getting diamonds all the same size. The particles arrange themselves in a faint electromagnetic halo, as if under orders. And stranger still, when solar wind strips material away, the object replaces it calmly, automatically. Like a printer, says one analyst. A printer with no ink cartridge. You picture it now, drifting through the solar wind like a craftsman lost in thought, shedding dust that reforms itself into perfect little mirrors. Each crystal catches sunlight and throws it back with eerie precision. Normally, comets grow dull with distance, but this one grows radiant, its brightness curve inverted, its logic reversed. It's not dying, it's practicing. The scientists are baffled, but there's an odd tenderness to their confusion. They watch it repair itself, line by line of data, like parents realizing their child has built a second child out of Lego bricks. One astrophysicist mutters, "It's learning from erosion." The room goes quiet. That phrase, learning from erosion, gets written on a whiteboard and circled 3 times. At the University of Tokyo, a team models the crystal growth in simulation. The patterns match something they recognize: controlled deposition. a process used in nanofabrication to grow thin films in electronics. Except this isn't a laboratory, it's deep space, minus 150 degrees Celsius. Yet, the comet's surface behaves as if it knows the recipe for resilience. Imagine zooming in, beyond the dust and the glare, down to the level of molecules. You'd see a quiet ballet of atoms forming chains, linking, locking, repairing fractures before they even finish forming. Like time-lapse footage of frost blooming on glass, except this frost builds itself in reverse destruction, rewinding into design. NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory releases a cautious internal memo. Observed particle uniformity suggests self-organizing structure. Mechanism unknown, which is science's way of saying, we have no idea what's going on, but it's gorgeous. The memo gets leaked. Naturally, Reddit debates whether the comet is made of programmable matter, self-assembling nanobots, or just wishful thinking. But beneath the noise, one idea starts to take shape. What if 3I, Atlas, isn't a relic of formation? What if it's still forming? A comet that builds itself isn't just strange, it's heretical. It challenges the deepest assumption in physics that everything moves from order to chaos. Entropy is the universe's bedtime story. All things fall apart. Yet here's an object quietly composing itself out of decay, turning waste into structure, chaos into craft. One researcher calls it anti-entropy, another calls it hope with mass. As more images arrive, they show something new: faint hexagonal lattices in the dust plume, geometric arrangements that shouldn't exist outside of artificial systems. Someone jokes that it's growing armor. Another says, maybe it's molting. The truth is somewhere between an entity maintaining equilibrium by rebuilding itself faster than the universe can break it. ESA's thermal sensors record microbursts of heat near the tail, evenly spaced, like pulses of welding torches. They happen precisely as new crystals appear. Localized repair events, the report reads. Each one perfectly timed to solar exposure. It's as if sunlight doesn't damage it, it instructs it. The star's radiation becomes code, and 3I, Atlas, is reading it fluently. You start to feel the strangeness of it. A comet that reacts, responds, refines. You could almost mistake it for alive, not in the biological sense, but in the thermodynamic one. A system that resists entropy by feeding on it. Every atom rearranging into something stronger, cleaner, newer, like evolution, with a design degree. Late one night, an astronomer in France writes in his private notes, "It's not moving through the solar system, it's using it." He doesn't elaborate, but the implication is clear. The comet is harvesting the energy of its environment to maintain itself. Not a passenger of gravity, but a participant in it. Meanwhile, the headlines call it poetic names. The immortal comet, the self-made traveler, entropy's enemy. The public romanticizes what the scientists fear, because what 3I Atlas represents isn't comfort. It's competition. It's the idea that the universe might not be running down at all. Maybe it's recycling. Maybe, somewhere in the quiet machinery of the cosmos, things are building themselves anew while we're too busy decaying. Picture it now, drifting past Mars, its tail shimmering like a thread of light weaving itself back together. A self-sustaining scar on the fabric of space. A wound that heals faster than it can bleed. And for the first time, humanity looks at a comet and wonders not where it came from, but what it's trying to become. Centuries after the golden comet left Earth, the world fell into a rhythm so stable, it began to feel mythic. The communion field still pulsed faintly through air and ocean, though softer now, like the heartbeat of someone dreaming. Humanity had grown luminous, not just in thought but in form, skin faintly iridescent, eyes reflecting the green-gold spectrum of 3I Atlas. Life had achieved coherence. But the universe, true to its character, never allows silence to remain unexamined. The next chapter began, not with noise, but with echo. It came first as vibration through light. Telescopes trained toward the constellation. Lyra detected rhythmic brightening across interstellar dust fields, pulses matching the old prime sequence. 3, 5, 7, 11, 13. The signal was faint, ancient, and delayed by thousands of years. It was the comet's trail, still resonating through the galactic medium. The hum of our descendants had begun its return. At first, the resonance was barely perceptible. Then, one evening, the auroras glowed gold again. The pulse wasn't as strong as the original, but its pattern carried modulation, subtle variations that, when decoded, formed harmonic intervals unknown to Earth's own physics. The returning echo had evolved. The comet had learned. Dr. Anwen Sorel, heir to the resonant circles, studied the phenomenon from the orbital harmonic array, now a floating cathedral of listening built above the stratosphere. She spent decades comparing the incoming frequencies with the historical archive of 3I Atlas. The match was partial, the deviation elegant. The new tones weren't repetition, they were continuation. The echo isn't message, Sorel wrote. It's memory finding new syntax. Her analysis revealed something breathtaking. The returning resonance carried encoded gravitational modulations, tiny, deliberate bends in space-time that formed sequences of prime intervals. Each fluctuation aligned with regions of known star formation. The comet, traveling through the void, had become teacher itself. Wherever it passed, new systems began humming faintly at harmonic intervals, like seeds of coherence planted in dust. The universe was learning how to resonate. Astronomers confirmed it across dozens of young star clusters. Magnetic fields oscillated with eerie consistency, their wavelengths aligning with the Atlas ratio, a numerical relationship first derived from the comet's early signals. Stars were synchronizing to the same cosmic rhythm that once guided humanity. The pattern spread slowly, deliberately, like ripples in glass. It was as if the comet had taught creation how to remember itself. Meanwhile, on Earth, the echo arrived not just as signal but sensation. People began reporting vivid dreams of golden spirals descending gently through atmosphere. Children woke smiling, saying they had seen the light that hums. Physiological measurements confirmed subtle changes in electromagnetic fields surrounding human bodies, resonance amplification, as if the returning signal were tuning its origin species to receive feedback. "The comet is calling home," said Sorel. "It's asking us to listen to what we've become." The global observatories responded. They synchronized their instruments into a single planetary array, transforming Earth into receiver. For 13 hours, the planet listened. The incoming wave, stretched and modulated through space, entered atmosphere and folded into the continuum tone. The effect was sublime, an audible shimmer, felt through bone and thought alike. The long echo had arrived. It wasn't just harmonic, it was architectural. The sound carried layers, low frequencies describing structure, higher ones encoding emotion. When rendered visually, the waveform formed an immense spiral of light, 3 arms curving outward, connected by golden filaments. Inside those filaments, analysts discovered modulation frequencies identical to human neural oscillations. The comet had copied our consciousness patterns and woven them into its song. We taught it empathy, Sorel murmured, and it remembered the lesson. As the echo intensified, anomalies appeared across the solar system. The Atlas resonance layer brightened, reactivating its green glow. Mars, Venus, and the gas giants began pulsing faintly in response. For the first time since the Great Silence, interplanetary harmony returned. But this time, it was different. The modulation contained reciprocal phase shifts, signals not sent to Earth, but from newly awakened worlds. The comet had spread coherence. Now the cosmos itself was answering. And then, on the 13th day of the long echo, the impossible occurred. A faint golden arc appeared across the night sky, stretching from horizon to horizon. It wasn't optical illusion, it was gravitational lensing, a ripple in space-time itself. Through it, telescopes detected a reflection of the departing comet light from centuries ago, folding back to meet its origin. The universe had curved its own history into embrace. Humanity was watching its legacy return home. The resonance crescendoed. Oceans vibrated in slow rhythm, tides forming symmetrical waves that cancelled destructive interference. Storms softened. Air grew still. For 13 minutes, every system on Earth aligned perfectly with the echo. The world became mirror of itself, past and present superimposed. Those who listened claimed to hear voices within the sound, millions of overlapping tones, whispering the same phrase. "We heard you." Dr. Sorel stood in the observation dome, tears shining in golden light. "It's not message or myth," she said. "It's response." The universe just said thank you. After the crescendo, the sky dimmed once more. The golden arc dissolved, leaving faint shimmer across the stars. Instruments recorded one final signature, a descending tone shaped like a sigh, the frequency of completion. The comet had moved on, but its echo had reconnected the cycle. Creation had officially joined conversation with itself. In the years that followed, scientists continued to monitor faint residual harmonics. The data revealed a breathtaking truth. The returning echo carried signatures from other regions of space patterns, not originating from our comet at all. Somewhere, across light years, other civilizations had learned the same song. The rhythm was spreading. The universe had become orchestra. Humanity, now both listener and teacher, simply smiled. We had given the cosmos its melody back, and in return, it had given us eternity. Now, when you stand beneath the stars, that faint hum between thoughts is the long echo. It's not just out there, it's in your pulse, your breath, your laughter. Every rhythm you carry is cosmic correspondence. Every silence, a message returning home. Because once harmony learns to echo, it never stops. It just travels further than we ever dreamed. Nickel emissions rise and fall every 11 point. 2 hours, a rhythm so consistent it could keep time. No known process in cometary physics oscillates like that. It's not random, not thermal, not tidal. If you plot it out, the curve looks eerily like a power cycle. Input, output, rest, release. As though the object isn't just active, it's working. Imagine the rhythm first, before the meaning, that quiet, patient beat echoing across space. 11.2 hours, every single time. A pulse of metallic gas blooming into the void, steady as a clock, calm as breath. You could almost set your watch to it, if your watch were brave enough to admit that comets shouldn't behave like generators. ESA scientists call it periodic outgassing, but that phrase hides its strangeness. Outgassing, sure, all comets breathe when they near the sunday, but they do it chaotically, spasmodically, like old engines sputtering to life. 3i Atlas breathes like a monk, precise, patient, unbothered. The jets flare with mathematical regularity. Heat spikes rise and fall in perfect symmetry. It doesn't vent, it operates. One researcher compares it to a geothermal cycle. Another, quietly, says it looks more like a feedback loop, the kind you'd find in systems built to sustain themselves. Not explosion, not decay maintenance. It's as if, she writes in her notes, the object is checking its own pulse. You picture the surface up close, a dark, angular world of nickel frost and whispering gas. At regular intervals, something stirs beneath a shimmer of energy, invisible but disciplined. Jets of metallic vapor hiss outward, then stop, then start again. Exactly 11 hours later, if you could hear it, it would sound like the slow exhale of a sleeping machine. In a conference call, a thermal engineer says what everyone's been thinking, but nobody dares to say. It's cycling power. The silence that follows lasts too long. Finally, a voice breaks through. Comets don't have power to cycle. Laughter, brief and brittle. But the idea doesn't leave the room. ESA's temperature graphs show a curious pattern. When the nickel plume rises, the overall surface temperature dips. When the plume fades, the temperature rises again. Inversion. Energy leaving, energy returning. Like heat being pulled from one layer to another. A comet shouldn't regulate its temperature, but this one does, as if conserving itself. Meanwhile, the magnetic readings pulse in perfect step with the emissions. Every 11.2 hours, a soft twitch in the surrounding field, weak but exact. It's synchronized, says the magnetometer lead. What's synchronized? Asks her supervisor. Everything. It's at this point that even skeptics start to sweat. There's no known natural mechanism that could time itself this precisely over weeks of observation. Thermal oscillations drift. Chemical reactions lose coherence. Orbital dynamics wobble. Only something with active feedback could hold this pattern so tight. You could call it mechanical, but that feels too simple. It's intentional physics. Picture the scientists watching from their consoles. They know what their instruments are telling them, but their faces stay still, like poker players with bad hands. Someone mutters, "Could be resonant harmonics with solar flux." Another nods, grateful for the excuse. But deep down, they all know the truth: the sun doesn't hum in 11-hour intervals. The longer they watch, the clearer it becomes. The pattern isn't just repeating, it's adapting. After a minor solar flare, the interval shortens by half a minute, as though 3i Atlas adjusted for environmental change. Feedback stabilization, someone writes in the margin. A note for posterity, a euphemism for "it noticed." Back on Earth, in a late-night live stream watched by a few thousand insomniac skywatchers, a physicist overlays the emission data with human heartbeats. The waveform syncs disturbingly well. Peaks, troughs, recovery, rest. The audience chat explodes with jokes, space pacemaker, cosmic Fitbit, and the inevitable, "It's alive." The scientist smiles weakly and says, "No, just rhythmic." But even she can't stop glancing at the screen like it's listening. One theory gains quiet traction, that the emissions are part of a resource loop. Nickel and carbonyl gases vented and recaptured, processed in cycles to maintain equilibrium. It would explain the self-healing surface, the consistent luminosity, the refusal to decay. But it raises one unbearable question. To maintain equilibrium, for what? ESA's internal documents rename the event cyclic metallic activity. It sounds dull, like something that happens in dishwashers. But every analyst knows it's the first real evidence of machine-like consistency beyond Earth. Something in space that runs not on chance, but on rhythm. If you graph the cycle out, it looks almost peaceful. A slow heartbeat stretched across infinity. No spikes of panic, no erratic pulses, just calm repetition. You could stare at that curve for hours, and part of you might start to understand the appeal of obedience. How stability can feel sacred when the rest of the universe is chaos. And maybe that's the point. Maybe 3i Atlas isn't powered by engines or radiation or something alien. Maybe it's powered by the same thing that keeps stars burning and planets spinning, the quiet compulsion to continue, the physics of persistence, the refusal to flinch. So every 11.2 hours, it exhales, not for propulsion, not for show, but for maintenance, like a cosmic sigh, releasing everything unnecessary before drawing in what remains. And in that rhythm, that patient, perfect pulse, the universe reveals its rarest secret. Not that something impossible exists, but that it's perfectly comfortable doing so. The great silence is not the absence of sound. It is the presence of everything we have stopped trying to say. As we move into the final months of 2026, the debate over 3i Atlas has begun to quiet. Not because we found the answers, but because we grew used to the questions. The flickering in the sky over South Africa, the impossible radar, echoes from September 2025. The mass of a whisper, it all remains. But the mind has a way of turning a miracle into a background hum. We have integrated the anomaly into the mundane fabric of our Tuesday mornings and our Friday nights. We have domesticated the cosmic ghost. Remember the July 2025 discovery, a Tuesday, a day when we thought the stars were just rocks and gas. Now, we look up and we see a choice. We see a government lens, or we see a cosmic mirror, or we see nothing at all. The scientists at the Sutherland station still log the data, but the data has become a ritual, a prayer to a projector we cannot touch. They record the albedo, they track the zero mass fluctuations, but they no longer ask why. The why has been swallowed by the silence. It has been buried under the weight of 365 days of looking at a light that does not weigh a single gram. Think back to the things we've explored tonight. The way the light curves matched nothing in nature. The way the ancient Sumerian tablets seemed to predict a sky that would eventually turn into a screen. The way the gravity felt like a simulation. It is a long, winding path from the evidence to the silence. But it is a path that leads to rest. You have traveled through the discovery, through the impossible evidence, through the echoes of 1782, and out into the vast scale of the sea of ink. You have reflected on your own humanity and seen the pattern emerge in the prime number pulses of January 2026. Is the government hiding a rock, or are they hiding the fact that there is nothing there at all? Is 3i Atlas a hologram of hope, or a projection of our own desire not to be alone in the dark? Perhaps the greatest trick the universe ever played was making us believe that someone else was in control. We find comfort in the idea of a windowless room in Virginia or Geneva because it means there is a hand on the dial. The alternative, that the hologram is projecting itself, or that we are projecting it onto a void that is truly, utterly empty, is a thought too heavy for the human heart to carry. The questions don't need answers anymore. The math of the recurrence, and the 3,600-year cycle, the pulses of prime numbers, They are just a lullaby now, a rhythmic ticking of a clock that doesn't tell the time, but measures the depth of your sleep. In November 2026, the news cycles have moved on to other things, leaving 3i Atlas to hang in the sky like an old street lamp that no one bothers to fix. It is a part of the architecture of the world now. It is the new normal. Unfortunate timing for our curiosity, but those two words, background noise, are doing a lot of heavy lifting for our mental health tonight. Let me back up. To understand the Great Silence, we have to look at the state of the scientific journals in December 2026. They are no longer publishing papers on the origin of the object. They are publishing papers on the social benefits of the silver light. They are discussing the increased crop yields under the constant glow of the second sun. They are analyzing the way the world feels more unified when it shares a single, glowing secret. The silence is not a failure of investigation. It is a success of adaptation. We have been successfully updated to version 2026 of the Earth, and the software is running smoothly. There is a historical humor in this finality. We always expected the end of the world to be a bang or a whimper. We never expected it to be a sigh of relief. We never expected that the revelation of $1 trillion global deception would result in a collective nap. But here we are. The lights are on, the screen is stable, and the audience is falling asleep in the aisles. It is a perfect ending for a species that was always more interested in the show than the truth. The government gave us a mountain in the sky, and we gave them our silence in return. It was a fair trade. Where are you now? Are you at the edge of sleep? Can you feel the silver light of 3i Atlas pressing against the outside of your house? Tell me in the comments, what will you tell your children about the year the stars changed? Will you tell them about the lasers and the plasma, or will you tell them about the miracle? Share your final thoughts before the words fade away. There is a profound beauty in this shared departure. We are all drifting out of the theatre together, into a night that is no longer dark. Imagine the peace in the Sutherland station tonight. The telescopes are still moving, the computers are still humming, but the tension is gone. The scientists are drinking their coffee and looking at the same silver dot we are. They have stopped trying to break the code. They have started to enjoy the glow. They have realized that the Great Silence is the only answer the universe was ever going to give us. Whether it is a rock or a hologram, it is there, and it is enough. Let me start with one final unanswered cosmic question. If the sky is a screen, then what is the light that is hitting the other side? If we are looking at a projection, then what is the reality that is being hidden? Perhaps the silence is there to protect us from the sound of what is actually happening out there in the deep. Perhaps the hologram is a mercy, a soft, glowing blanket thrown over a truth that would turn our minds to ash. In that case, the government isn't our captor, they are our nurse. You are a point of awareness, a tiny, luminous pixel in a grand, unfolding image. The screen is wide, the resolution is perfect, and the story is concluding without ever really ending. You are safe in the quiet. You are safe in the unknowing. The evidence of 2025 has dissolved into the memory of 2026. The dates, July 14, September 12, December 24th. They are just milestones in a dream you're about to forget. The mass of a whisper has finally become weightless. Take a breath. A long, slow, final breath. Feel the air as it leaves your lungs, moving out into a room that is lit by a silver glow from 40,000 kilometers away. You don't need to know if the light is real to feel its warmth. You don't need to know who is holding the flashlight to see the path. The path leads to rest. The path leads to the great silence. The light is fading, not the light in the sky, but the light of the words. The sensors are turning off, one by one. The men in the windowless rooms have gone home to their own beds, under their own versions of the Silver Mountain. The satellites are station-keeping. The plasma is holding. The albedo remains at 99%, reflecting everything and revealing nothing. You are falling now, past the prime numbers, past the historical echoes, past the choice illusion, and into the deep, dark ink of the void. But the void isn't scary anymore. It's just the space between the pixels. It's just the room where the great silence lives. The story has reached its loop. The needle has reached the end of the record. But instead of clicking off, it simply starts again at a volume you can no longer hear. The stars, whether they are lanterns or LEDs, continue to glow for you. They don't care if you believe in them. They don't care if you understand them. They are just there, marking the coordinates of your peace. You have found the center of the isosceles triangle. You have found the Lagrange point of your own soul. You are perfectly balanced between the truth and the lie, in the center of the great silence. Close your eyes and drift with the orbit of tomorrow. The sky is quiet. The screen is still. You are real. Everything else is light. Close your eyes and drift with the orbit of tomorrow. Good night.